October. We have 3 members of the board here present in the hall. Vice Chair Jenny Earl and Board Member Emily Green and myself, Randy Booth. Sarah Reel will be joining us via Zoom. She's traveling today. And we're very happy to have all of our staff members that we have become very accustomed to having their wonderful support and their wonderful preparation for these meetings, and we're grateful that they are here. Today, as we begin, we have an opportunity to spotlight the efforts of a group of individuals who are doing incredible things. Just this last month, I had a chance, actually a couple of weeks ago, of seeing the monthly newsletter from our safety team. And this newsletter, of course, goes out to all of our LEAs and charters and partners across the state. As I looked at that amazing newsletter and realized everything that was going on, and I had anticipated the school safety playbook that we're going to be speaking about in just a moment, and I just saw how many different issues are being dealt with and how many different opportunities to ensure the safety of our students and our staff and educators across the state of Utah. I was just kind of overwhelmed thinking about the efforts and how progressive and how on top of things our safety folks are. So grateful for Chantel and Rhett and Willie, Ashley, Michelle, Melissa, Jeremy, and Scott that are going to be recognized today. And I would like to turn the time now to Deputy Superintendent Patty Norman for that moment of recognition.
Thank you, Chair Booth. I'm going to go ahead and see if we do have anyone online. I know that we have Chantel who's trying her best to get here, but we noticed that you're online. I don't know if you can turn your camera on or not, but just be safe, whatever you're doing. So I'm going to, first of all, reiterate those names that Chair Booth recognized. And if you can raise your hand, I know some of you are in the room today and some of you are online. So just raise your hand so that the board can know who you are as well as the public. So we have Chantel Coda.
Let's have them come up so they can be seen on camera.
Oh, even better, even better. Yes, yes. So we have Chantel Coda, who is online today. We have Rhett Larson, Willie Chen. If you want to raise your hand right there, good. Ashley Postello, Michelle Knight, and is Michelle online? Okay, and Melissa Molstein. Did I say it right? Okay, I will practice that. Thank you. And Lieutenant Jeremy Barnes with the Department of Public Safety, and Scott Eyre, and he's with the Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. So I'm going to tell you how amazing this is because there's been a lot of work in the school safety area. So the Utah State Board of Education's mission is to open doors of opportunity for all Utah children. This month, we highlight the work of the following area that deserves recognition: progress on implementation and the new social studies. Oh, and we're also going to be talking about, no, we're not. Okay. Goal 3 of the Utah State Board of Education strategic plan is to provide safe and healthy schools for all learners. The School Safety Playbook was created to support this goal. This resource can be found on the USBE website, and there's a link. For those of you that can see it online, then there is a link that you can go to follow it through. The School Safety Playbook update. With the passage of recent legislation, school safety efforts now require an in-depth analysis of safety practices and policies at each school. In response to a need for technical assistance on school safety minimum requirements and legislation, the School Safety Center created a school safety playbook to support local education agencies and stakeholders in understanding law laws and policies surrounding school safety. This resource will support educators as they work with multidisciplinary teams to create safe and healthy learning environments through local policies and practices. This playbook represents collaborative work across agencies, including the Utah State Board of Education, the Department of Public Safety, the Office of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, and Safe UT. Members from each of these organizations make up the School Safety Center. The School Safety Center was created in 2009 and continues researching best practices, listening to national experts, and learning with and from other states. The mission of the School Safety Center is to work collaboratively to provide technical assistance, training, and resources that support local education agencies' commitment to ensuring school safety and improving the climate of school communities. The vision of the School Safety Center is that all Utah students are provided access to a safe, healthy, and supportive learning environment. And we'd like to thank the board for prioritizing this as one of the 4 main goals that has been a part of the strategic plan in the past. And also the legislature for prioritizing it through funding methods as well, and placing it there for our communities as well. This has been, I know those were 2 short paragraphs about what they did. And when you hear a playbook, it's like, oh, they created a playbook. But there has been hundreds and hundreds of hours of people who are dedicated to promoting and advocating for the safety of children, and being able to do it right in an efficient way and building those relationships along the way with all of those stakeholders. That was a long journey. It was a long journey to establish trust with each other and making decisions. And the support, I would also say, of Representative Wilcox and with establishing some of that funding and those bills that came forward, as well as our great superintendents who are asking for these detailed questions so they can do the right thing for our students. So thank you to the school safety team, all of the work that you do in analyzing data, creating the policies, getting the work out, as well as this playbook.
You know, I am so grateful for this team, and we do have some certificates, just a little note of appreciation to you for the work that you've done. And my wife baked some chocolate chip pumpkin cookies. I want to make sure those that we're honoring be the first ones to be able to.
Yes, you get to be the first pick. Can I make a comment too? Chair Booth,
Yes.
can I make a comment while you're doing that? Just yesterday, I had an administrator indicate that they used their playbook to make sure they said they had something happen at the school. They pulled out the playbook and it helped lead them in the direction they needed to go. So that happened firsthand yesterday, an actual experience I know about. So, and then they were talking to another administrator, and the other administrator said, oh, I guess I could use that playbook. So I guess, do you see what I'm saying? I'm just saying thank you for your work, because it's paying off. It's making things consistent, concise, and people know how to react. So, and this is a big area, and you guys have been doing a heavy lift for a while. So we appreciate it.
Rhett, do you want to say anything on behalf of the team in Chantel's absence?
Sure. Thank you. Rhett Larson, School Safety Center Coordinator for the Utah State Board of Education. And very much looking forward to this afternoon when Chantel will be speaking to the board in the study session. School safety continues to grow every year since 2019, when the School Safety Center was brought together through the formation of House Bill 120, the Student and School Safety Assessment Bill at that time. We see school safety continue to grow and expand, and we continue to learn with and from other states and what are the best practices. And we just feel grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve Utah and be able to provide resources and support for them, and appreciate the board and your ongoing support for school safety, as well as the legislature. We have come a long ways. We have a long ways to go, but we will never arrive, because we continue to learn with and from other states as we try to make our students safe wherever they go in our school community. So thank you.
Well, I know on behalf of the parents that I represent and the parents that all of our board members represent across the state, we express our appreciation. This is a top priority. There's nothing more important than the safety of our students and those that are spending their days with them in educating our children in the state of Utah, and we appreciate so much your effort to keep them safe. Thank you. We now have no public comment. Is that correct? We'll then move on to 2.3, action item R277325, the public education exit and engagement surveys. And I think we probably have Julie taking the lead on this. Julie, if you'd like to come and join us at the table. And I don't know whether Elise is sleeping right now, probably in Spain.
Is online.
Oh my goodness.
She is on a bus that it broke down in Spain. So she's gonna try to get on her computer, but right now she's on her phone. But she's here with us, so we could turn some tone. So we're admitting her iPhone again. So so she should be here in just a second.
Great.
To speak to these three motions or these three action items.
That's great. It's pretty wonderful that we have the opportunity to access her expertise and knowledge all the way from Spain and a broken down bus.
I'm sorry, I probably missed that. Am I good to speak? My internet is being very unstable, so I'm leaving my camera off. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is R277325, and this is about the exit and engagement surveys that we give to educators every other year. For the engagement survey is given to educators across the state, and then the exit survey is given when educators choose to leave the profession, at least here in Utah. Both of these surveys came out of legislation, I believe in 2019, where the legislature asked that we start tracking this information and gathering information so that we can see across time what kinds of things we can do to support teachers in their classrooms and in staying in the profession long term. So we actually had this rule brought to you last month, and there were questions about the surveys themselves. And so we're bringing it back this month along with the surveys as two separate items as well. So those are attached there. I will also just note we've had a few meetings as staff over the last few weeks looking at these surveys and what kind of the implications are of, you know, what the intended outcomes of these survey questions are. And I was amazed by the amount of work that has gone into creating the surveys and all of the different questions that are on the surveys. We had several staff members working on that along with psychometricians that to make these surveys as robust and as reliable as possible. And so those surveys can be changed, and that is up to the board if those changes want to be made. We just ask that we might maybe put together a working group or make it more of a long-term effort to bring in all of those different voices and make sure that the surveys stay reliable and valid as we try to compare data across years, right? We only have a few years of data coming into 2024. And so it would be great if we could continue to compare results and make sure that we see improvement across our state in teacher retention. So that was a lot of information, but have you say questions. And I believe Julie Lundell is also here and here to answer questions.
Questions or comments from any of our board? Emily?
Yes, I think we're on a great start here with the surveys, and a survey is always hard because it's like, what are we trying to find from the questions? I'm noticing on this one, there's a lot of questions about the mentors. Could I get some feedback on, because it goes in pretty deep, you know, it presents questions in a lot of different ways, specifically about the mentors. For me, reading it, it seems that we are trying to acquire an understanding of what mentors do for teachers and that system. Is that correct? And or what is the reason with the questions about the mentors?
Julie Lindell, the specialist over teacher retention. And yeah, we know that one of the key things about helping a teacher feel satisfied, connected, and successful in their career is mentorship. And so this was developed around, is it working? Are they getting adequate mentorship? Mentorship is actually tied into legislation that they need to be trained mentors. And so in one way, it gives us a read on is what's been legislatively required happening? Is this the experience that our teachers are having? And being able to drill down a little bit more on the supports that we would put in place around mentoring. Now, specifically to that, the questions are only for people that are in their first 3 years of teaching. So while it looks like a big section, the fact is that anyone that's in like year 4 or beyond would not receive that section. It is targeted to those people who are in their first 3 years.
Okay. So this one specifically is targeted to teachers that are.
Oh, so let me
Yeah.
let me clarify. So the whole survey, the exit survey, would go to anyone who is leaving an LEA, anyone who's leaving, and that's whether they're moving to a different district or different LEA or if they're leaving the profession. But that section of it, the mentoring section in both the exit and engagement survey, is only administered to people if they answer the question that says I'm in year 1 to 3. That if they answer that little piece, then it gives them the mentoring section. If they answer I have more experience than that, then it skips those questions and moves on to the rest of the survey.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
So when they receive this will be done through a computer and then, or is it paper? In what way is it delivered?
It's delivered through a Qualtrics survey. So it goes to the LEA. They send it out as their own link, and then the data routes back to us through that Qualtrics survey.
Okay, thank you. Well, that clears up a lot of information or questions I had. The other question, some things that I was wondering about. Do we give people a chance to talk about workplace environment? What was the conversations around that as we put this together? Was that something a concern that came up? Did we look at maybe being able to touch on those types of topics? And is that something that was meant for maybe a different survey?
Lisa McLaughlin, I'm the educator preparation coordinator, and I was involved in the survey last year while we were transitioning. So I wasn't there for the entire development, but I know a little bit, so I'll do my best. But there's a lot of discussion in the literature about how to distinguish school climate and school leadership. And sometimes it's really hard to see, whether, because the school leader has a lot of influence on school climate. So I think what the survey developers did in this is that they asked a lot of questions about school leadership, but they also asked questions about job satisfaction and supplies that they may have access to in the classroom. And the engagement survey is intended to be asked to people who are currently teaching. And then the exit survey is asked for people who are leaving, and they're meant to complement each other so that we can get the same information, but from 2 different groups of people.
And I don't know if this hits that, just because as you were asking, I would just kind of looking back down through, but under the satisfaction, I found my day-to-day work interesting, rewarding. Then there's another question about students in the school generally respect their teachers. So it starts to build on that, which I don't know if Board Member Green has some maybe recommendations on how to construct that a little bit more, or certain areas. It does seem that it's not maybe in one spot, but it seems to be woven in a variety of spots, right? Just that we know that if an educator feels supported by their administration, the culture of their environment, right, is changed. So, and it's different than those that don't feel the support. They feel like they're, that adds to that culture. So, and I don't know, maybe you have some specific ones that you think we're missing or something.
I think I'm just probably inquiring to get the lay of the land on, because again, I preface like there are so many questions you could ask. And I do think it's important that we give teachers an opportunity to be as honest as they can, because it only helps us, or the LEAs, like we can find out how to improve. So one thing, I guess, just the nod that I would give is being able to be detailed about like the extra duty contracts, if they were paid hourly or not at all. Leave time policies. Policies is probably a big one. If we could, did we talk a lot about policies? Like maybe there were policies there that they struggled with. I don't know if that was something that seemed to be on the radar for in your conversations.
Yeah, we're just trying to refresh our memory. I don't think there is a lot in there about policy specifically. There is a section that's all around leadership and how their interactions with leadership, which may have some sort of tangent relationships, but not specific to policy that's in the survey right now.
Okay. Do we feel like that could be helpful?
So could you review just for the board and for the public how this information, once it's collected, is used? How is it helpful to you and to our state leadership in terms of receiving this information? What does it do for us? And how might it have an impact in any decisions we make in the future?
So there is a report generated from these surveys, the engagement survey every other year and the exit survey every year. And we look at that data and growth over time to kind of drive our decision making around retention efforts. For example, some of our strategy teams are focused on having effective teachers in every classroom, and how do we focus on that, or changing the perception of teaching. And so some of those strategy groups look at this data and try to drive their initiatives. So one of the things that has come from this survey, and it comes from other surveys as well, but the stress that our teachers have been experiencing for the last several years especially. And so what are resources and initiatives that we can put in place to support those stressors that are coming into their job place or that have been there? And so it's driving those kinds of decisions and conversations. And part of it is publicly available data that we're sharing with our LEAs, and we keep those reports on our websites to share with stakeholders who are also looking for that type of information. Does that answer your question?
So on S.07 and S.08, that one does give an opportunity to talk about paid fairly for the work that I do. So that one addresses that. And then my benefits package was sufficient for my needs. That one gives a chance. And then you do add S.09, which is a place where they could be more specific. Do we feel like we give enough opportunity for teachers to be more specific if they were? And I'm asking these questions because they kind of come from the field. So this is just like, open conversation. Is there a way that we could give them an opportunity to describe that associated with those like S.07 or S.08? Yes.
Currently, on this agenda item, we're talking about the engagement survey, not the exit survey.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that we have on the screen for the public the correct survey that you're discussing.
Okay. Am I on the wrong one? Am I on the wrong one right now? Okay.
Because I see engagement survey and we don't have an SL9 on this.
Okay. Yep. Nope. I was highlighted. I apologize. I jumped the gun. Okay.
It's a good question.
Should we? Yes. Okay. All right. Public. I got it wrong. Okay. So I'm on the engagement survey. So what? Anyway, if you just want to answer that question, then I'll.
Yeah, and just if it's helpful, the surveys, although the numbering may be slightly different because sometimes there's a question that's particular to the audience, they are actually very, very similar. each section has very similar banks. So while there may be slight differences, it's not super far off. So yes, to answer your question, there are a number of open-ended questions throughout the survey. I actually, when I go through the data, find those to be the most fascinating, to just really see what it is that our teachers are experiencing and feeling and thinking. And I would say that as you read through those responses, they do take that opportunity when they have an open response to share what their experience really is and what's on their mind. And sometimes it doesn't even like immediately pertain to the question. And the next one they might say, oh, I explained this all before. So we do get kind of an open, there's a number of places throughout where they can kind of explain their experiences or their input on the aspects of them leaving or their teaching or their feelings or experience.
That's where, and that was the question I was going to ask. Do they frequently fill that in? And how is once you have that, obviously it's not A, B, or C, right? So how do you use that information, right? Do you just collect them in general areas?
So there's a qualitative portion to the report where they take sample size out of those answers, a fairly large sample size, we have 20,000 responses. Obviously it's, but still they take a large sample size and do a qualitative process to kind of determine what some of the overarching themes are. And so that does show up in the report with some of the overarching themes.
Thank you. I just wondered how that, if they're actually taking the time to fill that out. And it sounds like that could be a spot where if there was something that wasn't on the survey, like board member Green was talking about, then they could include that there. So hopefully.
All right. Are there additional questions or comments regarding the engagement survey, which is what we're discussing?
I have one more.
Yes.
Would you just tell me if are there any, and I probably could go back through, but I'm trying to remember now, any specific items on discipline policies or the lack of policy? And maybe this is where you were headed in the first place. It's the discipline pieces where, or this goes into the administration too, right? Like there's not a follow through. So the teacher doesn't have the support for discipline specifically. I don't know. Well, I'll look back to it.
Would that be in the engagement survey, or would that be in the exit survey?
Exit.
Okay, so we're on engagement right now. Okay.
Engagement as well.
Okay.
Just mixing the two up.
Well, and I guess that's,
But I do that.
would that apply to both? Because, I've heard from some, the exit is because I don't know, the environment's not there for students. I guess changed, right?
We can scan through real quick and see what the questions are. I will say that having read the responses, I often.
We on the engagement first, we should be on the exit first in our agenda.
Oh, yes.
That's why I was on exit.
That's why I'm like, oh man.
But it's okay.
It is, but I just, for the public, right? Then we want to make sure we're talking about the right one.
I got it up.
Okay.
So we can pull up and scan and see what the actual question is. But there is, I know at least in our open-ended questions, sometimes they'll say responses that will say something like, I had challenges with the student behavior. But we can look and see if we have specific responses.
If there's not, I would recommend maybe we put one or two in there. And I'm not sure where, but I'll just look down.
We can look.
I guess we could make the recommendation that staff look at that.
Okay.
Right,
So
and then address that for going before the board though,
Okay.
too, if we didn't want to use our time doing that now. And maybe, and I would think it would maybe fall under both leadership, right? As well as actual, them feeling supported if it's not there adequately. So.
Yeah. I think that was one area that I was maybe wanting to have a little bit more discussion or give them an opportunity to talk specifically about that, like the discipline, classroom management, like the ability to manage their classrooms, accountability, discipline, like all of those things. Cause I do know
which would fall under the
there's a
policy
huge
piece too,
increase
right?
in that. And I do think that is weighs heavy on teachers. And it can be a very, very big thing that they don't feel supported in. And so I don't know, I would like to see. That's all I have to say.
So I'm confused. Which one should we be talking about right now? What are we considering in terms of the motion?
We are, because that's what was on the
My
agenda.
agenda is backwards, so I apologize.
Okay,
Exit first, then engagement.
okay. All right, good. So 2.3 action item is exit. Okay, so now we can talk about exit. Did you have any more on your exit?
No, just
Okay,
yeah, again, probably just the one area is really making sure that we've given them a chance to discuss if that was part of their concern or it is continuing to be part of their concern, which is the behavior classroom management on that level. Thank you.
all right. I would be open to receiving a motion.
I move that we move, let's see, that we move the USB educator exit survey forward and considering, and that staff work to put some discipline questions in there. And then just making sure we know what those end up being before. Well, that was, I kept talking. It went not quite that much.
Okay, so I'm not quite, so we're getting it up here on the board. We have a motion that the committee approves R277325 Public Education Exit Survey, incorporated document exit survey on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading, and that staff work towards creating questions surrounding school discipline. Does that sound like it's
May I,
what you had wanted?
may I
Yeah,
clarify?
yeah.
So, in working and implementation of this motion, that would mean that this survey in its totality is approved, but you would also like to add additional questions about school discipline in future iterations.
No, I would like them added in this one.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
So this complete survey is yes, and school discipline. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
not
we would add that coming before the board.
to come before the board.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Is that, it might, okay. That's what I thought we were,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just going to be very clear in the motion.
And it
Yeah,
might
I think
be
that's good.
as simple, if I'm hearing you correctly, as adding an open-ended question that invites their response in this specific area of discipline and the amount of support that, or
Or throughout, but I know that probably quadruples. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that probably just quadruples the information. Yes, I would like something added that they could, like, for example, we have SO3 on the exit survey. The students at the school generally respect their teachers. That one's like, that's the one where that you could lead into, but it's not, there's not anything there that they could expand on their answer. So I think that one could be a really big one as far as what teachers would give feedback on. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think there are some spots that we could add some options to the questions or even add full questions about. So if we bring a draft to the board next time that has that, is that what you're requesting? Yeah, and then
Yeah.
just for,
so you're bringing it back here?
yeah, I don't know, am I bringing it back here to the board next
You
time?
could, it could go to the board. Do you want it? We can have it come back here.
I don't know that it has to come
Yeah, I
back
don't-
here.
I feel like, the
I think we're,
yeah, I
I
think
think we're
if you,
close.
yeah.
Okay. Patty, and then the other thing is just for your knowledge, just so you, as you're making decisions, the exit survey is actually in play right now. Like, people leave throughout the year
Right.
and so it wouldn't statistically make sense really for us to change that until the end of the school year. So I don't know, as you're considering that, if there could be timing considerations on when the new draft would be implemented.
Is that when you would want it implemented?
Yeah, like the
Okay.
engagement survey, this is an off year, so we're not administering it, so it doesn't matter so much. But the exit survey, we're kind of mid-year, we haven't had a ton of exits, yet in October, but that one's kind of already launched. It's going. So timing on that is something.
I see. So
to
you're saying the
consider.
statistics would be off just because some of them wouldn't have answered this fully and you would run it
Some would have
according
different
to year.
questions. Yeah. So it like starting a new
So
exit
this round
survey.
of exit interviews.
Yeah. So their
Yeah.
next
That's
next
fine.
round.
The
Right.
next-
Yeah,
the
just
next
bringing
year.
that to your
Yeah.
attention. that
Yeah.
there's
That's good.
kind of a timing issue to it. So
And we want to be exact to make sure we're not. Yeah.
Could you make sure that that is what you would like for it to say?
And the staff work towards creating questions concerning
Yeah.
school discipline for the next iteration or what,
Yeah. For the
start
next iteration,
beginning
how would we?
in the
that,
next
right?
cycle or the next year or the next, what do you call it? Okay.
To start or should start during the 2020, 25, 26 cycle or something like that. So it's clear that yeah.
We're working towards that. We don't want to mess up the current, what's already begun midstream. We're not going to try to change the rules in the game. Got that, Patty?
2026. Okay. Yep, I think I have it.
Does that look good, Julie?
Yeah, so should we say 2025, 26? Because we'll actually
Okay.
start it in like August of 2025.
Good. Excellent. Okay, so let's review the motion. That the committee approves R277325 Public Education Exit Survey on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading, and that staff work towards creating questions concerning school discipline when bringing the exit survey to the board in the November full board meeting. Or should I be reading the one above? I'm sorry.
One above. Let me actually put this here and it will probably make.
So I'm sorry for the confusion, especially for the public who
Okay.
can't see the screen here.
I'm gonna go like this. How about that? Does that help?
It's not very strong up there.
Okay. Can we make that
Just-
bigger? Can we make that any bigger for
Yeah.
them?
I'll just do that too. They're the same.
Okay. Does that help?
Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, we'll review. I'm going to repeat the motion, the recommended motion. That the committee approves R277325 Public Education Exit Survey on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. And,
Sorry. We have one question before we actually.
okay, go ahead.
And it.
Well, you're talking your mic.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. The question is around just finances or what did you have? Our extra duties and hourly pay. Was that adequately addressed in there?
I'm looking under resources and professional learning because that's typical, I believe where that typically falls under. And again, it's asking more of a specific question towards that. I mean, you do have, I had to purchase the technologies I needed to do my job with personal funds. There's a lot of questions about having the opportunity to. And I think to know if they felt,
You're just wondering if they have extra responsibilities that they're required to do that are not covered under contract or not reimbursed. So something along that lines. Am I hitting that right?
yeah, except I'm not. Are you confused on what we're asking? You can say yes.
Lisa McLaughlin, I believe you're correct that we do ask questions about supplies and do they have adequate supplies or do they have to pay for it with their own money? But as far as extra time, there's questions about workload and stress, but not specifically about extra duties that they do for without getting paid. Or benefits. I think you were asking questions about benefits.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something about that? Or,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
but
I
I don't
just,
know how to
it could just be
present it.
one
Could-
question,
could
right?
I-
A question
Could I
around.
reach out to you between now and November and just maybe have something better that we could discuss? Is that okay? Or we can bring it to the full board? What would be the best way to do that? Because it's not here, but
what would you recommend, Patty?
I think this is the motion from the committee and it says questions concerning school discipline.
We could
And then
add.
you can always add, you can add it here and, or when it comes to it coming to the full board, you can have a substitute motion at that time and say, we'd also like to add another question concerning something like that.
Or if you
Yeah.
framed it up like the discipline and
School
it's abroad, then you,
Yeah,
I don't see any
and
reason why you couldn't have
school discipline.
personally
could we do
engagement and
kind
get
of
it right.
an umbrella statement
Yeah.
then, or other, I mean,
Teacher
it's
duties,
almost seems like
extra
I'm
duties,
asking for permission
pay,
to give an
something like that.
amendment in next board meeting. I
Right,
don't think I have to do that.
No, that's what I'm saying is you could do the
Okay.
amendment in the next board meeting. Here, we could just put and teacher duties. So that's really broad because then it could be extra duty hours or whatever it is. Then you can work together. If I specifically say and teacher extra duty hours, then it might not fit specifically. So do you want me to just put
Okay.
in teacher duties?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks to our public for hanging in here with us, and we will get a motion to you in just 1 second. All right. Here it is. The motion is that the committee approves R277325 Public Education Exit Survey on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading, and that staff work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and teacher duties when bringing the exit survey to the board in November for full board meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. That's it? Great. Seeing no further questions or discussion, those in favor say aye. Aye. And we don't have, I don't believe we have board member Reel yet. Okay. So that is unanimous. And we're ready to move on to the next action item. Just zooming right along. Action item number 2.4 is once again 277325 Public Education Exit and Engagement Surveys. And this one is focused on the engagement survey specifically. Do you have any questions regarding or concerns regarding that one?
And that one's just to clarify then, because we were going between the two. So this is the one where if they are, 1 to 3 years in, then they tag on to the questions about the mentor. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that.
Yes, I believe they are also asked mentoring questions in the exit survey as well. So they match, but it is only, they're only given to them if it's in the first 1 to 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so if someone was moving to another state or exiting within 1 to 3 years,
So-
they would get those.
This might give an easy solution. And I think discipline support could fit here too. On that first section where it says, which of the following supports do you have or receive a formal mentor at your school? Physical, institutional, emotional, instructional. It could be discipline, classroom discipline, or something like, I think specifically discipline. It's not necessarily classroom structure, right? Or management. Those are, to me, there's components of it, right? But I feel like it's the discipline piece that, do you have the adequate supports? I'm just suggesting that might be a good spot to put it, is all I'm saying. But I think it probably needs to be here too. And maybe the
if I
same
may,
under- yeah.
because our engagement surveys and exit surveys are mirrors of each other. I think whatever
Yeah.
I would recommend whatever you suggest that we do in the exit, that we also, put a matching correlation in our engagement so that they continue to be kind of those mirrors of.
Yeah, so you can use the data.
Yes, it's different windows of both those people who have left us and those people who have stayed.
Yeah.
And to kind of be able to correlate that data and say, what's working, what's not for these groups.
And I'm just suggesting that could be the spot where this could land easily or one of the questions around discipline. So, and it could be on both, right? So, yeah.
So may I?
Of course.
On PE.04, that's page 11 on the engagement survey. It says, typically this year, how well prepared have you felt to manage student behavior associated with your assignment at the school? And so that would be a perfect example of maybe that box being there so that they could list, because I have heard a lot of unique, and they're all different, situations that teachers have to deal with. Some, like they felt supported, others, it was like they were literally left to manage what could, equate to sexual harassment under a working contract. And there's just no accountability there. And I am hearing that is on a huge uptick with students saying things that just should not be said, but there's just no support mechanism built in for teachers being able to discipline when those types of physical things happen and verbal things happen. So I think this is just an area that I really feel, I think people or teachers would like to have a moment to air their concerns and get support. So anyway, that's just one example on this one that I saw. Maybe we could expand on an opportunity for them to have a place to take that information and we can learn what's lacking in that area. Anyway, that's all. Is that good? I don't have anything to recommend right now, but in the next month, we could work on something. So I'll just leave it at that.
So how would we change the motion that we just did for exit for engagement now as we move to this next motion?
Can
Yeah. So, yeah. So what I did is I took the motion from the previous action item and I copied it verbatim over, except for substituting the word engagement for exit. So then that included, so that there would be parallel data to look at from engagement to exit. That would parallel the concerning school discipline and teacher duties. So did you want to add something in there specific to engagement, or does that encompass what you'd like?
Could we add behavior as well?
Mhm.
So it would be questions concerning school discipline, student behavior.
And when you say, I'm just trying to make
I
sure
don't
so that
know.
it's clear enough. Student
Yeah, I was
behavior
gonna say student.
could be good, could be bad. Could
Yeah.
be, I'm good and bad's kind of a
So
Yeah,
isn't
we
it
don't
more
want that.
no
support?
characteristic there. So that's why I'm like, which
Isn't the concern that you have, or what we're trying to find out, is how much support do they feel they receive in school discipline matters or student behavior matters? So it's the support is what we're not wanting to know how much behavioral problem did you have with your students, or it's did you feel supported in dealing with
where the policy's clear.
were the policies clear? Were the support mechanisms in place so that you could handle whatever behavioral issues are coming up more and more?
That might be the way to just. Okay.
Did you want to go back and change it in the previous
Yeah,
one?
I think that would be good because you're wanting to correlate, right?
Yeah.
So.
So you would vote on this one and then we would call back the previous one. How do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could bring this back to changes, like if we pass, so I understand this is like continuing think we have to pass something.
Oh.
We could bring it back to committee since we're not implementing it until next year.
Okay, you can, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, then we don't have that whole
okay.
time discussion, whatever, we can just move something that's, I think that's good.
So is there a way, since this probably won't be in place until 25, 26, can we, are we needing to approve what already is in place, or hasn't that already been approved?
That
I
was
mean, this cycle
just
is
barely
already
approved.
midstream.
So it's the reason why is the rule, it was,
Thank you, Michelle. It was in the rule that we had changes to. So we're asking if we're approving, we have to approve the things that are incorporated in the rule and the rule.
Uh-huh. So, but we don't have anything to approve in terms of the new things that we want to add for 25, 26. So are we approving, continue to use what you've got right now for the rest of this cycle? It's approved, and we're sending it onto the board to approve what you're already doing. And
Mhm.
with the caveat that we will look to make these additional changes in the next iteration for 25, 26. But that'll be
Does the rule have to pass out in, is it continuation? I'm trying to remember. Is this a continuation? Like there was a time frame we had to have the rule.
It is a continuation.
Yeah, so I think it was December it had to be done by. So there we were. Oh, it's January?
It's January.
If it's January, we can tidy this up and then so that we're not having moving parts.
So what I did is I put in there, changing it from when bringing the engagement survey to the full board, change that to the committee in the November meeting.
Okay.
No,
All right. So did we get that support thing in there?
And then we changed this concerning
Yeah.
school discipline, student support behavior, school discipline, and right?
Yeah, and does that look good, Emily, right there? Concerning school discipline and student behavior supports
yes.
and teacher duties.
December.
Do you want to
Yeah.
do anything more clarification,
Yeah,
any more clarification on teacher duties?
Right, and then they'll come back to committee and then we can.
Elise has her hand raised.
Well, wonderful. Elise, please speak to us from España.
I was gonna say bonjour, but that's not even the right language. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate your patience with me. Elise Nui, policy advisor. I am not in the room, so I can't ask the staff. But as far as the rule itself goes, we would be approving the rule with the surveys as they're currently being put out during this year, and there would be no problem in bringing, if we wanted to spend more time on the surveys, bringing the rule back for an additional continuation when we update the rule or update the surveys. So I'm just saying we could have more time if that's what we want and do them in those two chunks, and it would still be pretty neat and tidy, but it's up to all of you. So.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, and I think we could finish this in November and have it done for December and right. So we don't have to bring it back again and then do it again. I think I don't think it's going to be that complicated. Just, making sure we're hitting those key areas.
Just that we then have to send it through all of the, what do you call those people? Something metrics?
Psychometricians.
Yeah, those.
I
And-
want to be
but
one a
that'll-
psychometrician.
Just so that all of those things are,
But it will follow similar formatting. It's not going to be complicated. It'll be similar in setup, similar in formatting. It's just making sure a couple pieces are in there. So yeah, it would have to be double checked. Yeah.
that's good. Okay, so we'll proceed with this new motion that's right up there. Thank you for helping us along here. We have a motion that the committee approves R277325 Public Education Engagement Survey on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading, and that staff work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and student behavior supports and teacher duties when bringing the engagement survey to the committee in the November meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. So now that's the motion. Does that, do we need to be doing something in response to what Elise just said in terms of approving this as it was?
Not yet.
No, not yet. Okay, great. So we have that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous, passes.
Then I move we bring the previous motion back up on the first survey
Great,
so we can adjust it to bring it back to committee as well. That's the
terrific.
motion. I move we bring the previous motion back up.
Thank you. We now-
Recall. Is that the
Recall.
reconsider? Reconsider?
we're going to reconsider now the first motion with the addition of
We
the,
got to vote on whether or not we agree to reconsider it.
okay,
And then-
all those in favor of reconsidering, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous.
And then the motion that we add committee instead of board to this item and the behavior support.
So now
Is that-
it'll
oh,
be
sorry. Oh, what?
exit, the
Patty's-
exit survey,
Patty's raising her hand in a
right?
question.
Yeah, I just read the full thing and it actually doesn't make sense all the way because it says on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. And then it says we're bringing it to the committee.
So we need to strike that first part, right? What's that?
So on first,
Oh.
and then we need
No,
Get this right. It's sure a good thing that we have plenty of time here in this meeting.
you actually do.
the committee direct staff.
Thanks for your patience.
So we would probably pass on the actual rule as well. We would ask that it just be brought back to committee, right? Yeah. You can take.
No pressure, Patty, as
I know.
you have to drive and keep us honest and
I think I have it. Would you like to read it and make sure that I have it?
that the committee directs staff to work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and student behavior supports and teacher duties and bring back the engagement survey
Exit.
or the exit survey to the committee in the November meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. Does that feel right?
We'll have to change the other one too.
Yes.
Then we'll have to change the other one too.
Okay, that's okay. Let's do it.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Any concerns from you guys over there? Okay. Then that's the motion that the committee directs staff, okay, no. That the committee approves R277325 Public Education Exit Survey on,
No,
no,
below it,
okay.
the red.
That the committee directs staff to work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and student behavior supports and teacher duties and bring back the exit survey to the committee in the November meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. Whoa,
It's
please
perfect.
excuse my stumbles. So we don't need to say what's up at the beginning of the original one.
Yeah, that's the original one, but I'll still need it for.
Yeah.
My summary.
But don't we need to say the beginning of that at the beginning of this new one so that we are taking to, we're, okay,
Yeah.
Vote on this one, then we'll bring the other one back up.
Yeah.
Change it and vote on it.
But
Okay.
you don't need what's in the beginning of it because you're not going to approve the exit survey as it is because we have time until
Okay.
January.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't need to approve it until
Excellent.
next month.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're just doing the bottom part, that the committee directs staff to work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and student behavior supports and teacher duties, and bring back to the exits and bring the exit survey back to the committee in November meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Now
And I
we're going to bring
propose
the
we
other one.
reconsider the engagement survey motion.
Didn't we already do that one?
We have to change.
We forgot to take out the board part at
Okay.
first.
Terrific.
So we have to,
So now the engagement survey one. And it's going to be that the committee directs staff to work towards creating questions concerning school discipline and student behavior supports and teacher duties, and bring back the engagement survey to the committee in the November meeting to be implemented in the 2025-2026 survey cycle. Is that correct? All in favor, say aye.
I,
It's unanimous. That's approved. Thank you. Now we take a look at the rule itself.
did we do that right, Michelle?
You might want to.
Go ahead.
If you have changes that you want to make to the rule, you could do that, but you probably will want to bring the
Oh.
rule back in your next.
Okay, I'm just
meeting.
gonna move that I move that we,
Postpone.
oh, do you have any changes? I didn't have any changes.
I didn't.
Then you may want to just postpone
Okay.
it until next
I
month.
move that we postpone R 277-325 public education exit and engagement surveys until November. Thank you. You're like, finish it.
Thank you. We have a motion to, what did you call it?
Postpone.
Postpone the rule 277-325 until our November meeting. Is that correct? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Passed. Thank you.
May I ask? Okay, on the rule, just real quick so I understand, we added a school-based administrator. And that, just so that they have the opportunity for the survey as well. We just left out that category, is that right? So we just needed
Yes.
to add that.
So it's something that's happened more in practice. Like our LAs have generally been sending it to our school-based employees, and those people have mostly been receiving them. Just to clarify that, yes, that is a great area to collect the data on, and it does allow us to drill down a little bit more on maybe why different people might be leaving, different categories might be leaving the schools. And so it doesn't really change a lot because, like I said, in practice, most CLAs were doing that anyway, and we filter for that. There's spots when they fill out the survey that they can say, oh, I'm an administrator or I'm a librarian, whatever they are. So in practicality, it doesn't change a lot. It just provides some clarity around, yes, we would like to include that data piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Anything else that we should be doing for you today? Did you
We
get
gotta vote that
Did you
on
get
that, right?
cookies?
Okay.
All right. Okay. I think we're going to move on to our next.
I think we have to vote on that though.
Oh, we do?
Did we not vote? Did we? I
I
don't
thought
think
we
we voted on postponing. Oh, we did? Oh, sorry. Okay. Can I make a motion? We take a 10-minute break? I know we're not that far in, but I need a 10-minute break.
Yes. Let's do a 10-minute break.
Okay.
Do we need to vote? No, we're just going to take a 10-minute break.
So good, so good.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Lynn's in our neighborhood is more cakey. They are really good though. Okay, I'm gonna run. I got a drink.
Yes, thank you. So you breathe. Where are you in?
This feels like.
And I'm behind. And like, as I'm running up the stairs, multiple people are asking me. Here, here, I'll probably have two. No, I'll probably have two. but-
Okay, that's a good idea. And never did see one. At least that's my experience. When I got home last night, my wife had it.
Your house probably smells really great.
We just don't really stop that. We need something on the second. The first day. That's one thing.
Well, we're having a party for Angie, so you can bring them up and share and the rest and Angie's not yet, he was there. I was like, but you have, like, all of that. Other having monitor that. And it's not. Well, educators and. They really. But you should celebrate. That's the speaker. They thought they were worried about that. I don't care about that. Why did my phone blow up?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's another emergency. Oh my God. What? I'm getting right now. I'm trying to find it, just want to prove it. It's not a state attachment.
Welcome back. We're so happy to get going again, and we look forward now to hearing from Darren Nielsen as we review action item number 2.6, annual core standards rubric review. Darren.
Great. Thank you, Chair, for the time on your agenda to talk about this. So these are fun conversations because the standards, as we talked a little bit yesterday, there's a foundation of so many decisions and so many things that happen in our classrooms. And policy, your internal policy 3002, which is referenced in the memo, directs staff on the process to bring this information to the board. And I just wanted to read a section of that. It says the superintendent shall submit to the board the results of an annual analysis of each of the core standard rubric results. And so the other materials that are attached to the backup are the results of that analysis, which included a survey, a statewide survey that was open through July and August. And so this is a regular process that comes before the board. And I think all three of you are aware of that, but for the public that might listen to this today or later time, just wanted to highlight that. And then it says the board will then consider the results of the annual analysis described to determine if the standards need to be queued for revision. And that can be done either through the queuing rubrics that we're going to talk about today, and we've put a summary of those up here on the screen, or by the schedule. So prior to this process, there was just a 7-year schedule that we would try to stick to. And it wasn't always possible for the board to do that, but generally every 7 years, they would just get reviewed. And so you have the two things that you'll notice: a date when they're scheduled, the timeline for revision, and then the queuing rubric. And it's both of those can be considered by this committee and the board to determine whether you want to allocate staff time and resources to initiate revision. I'll just go through some highlights and then open it up for you guys to discuss what you want to do. Obviously, English language arts is recently adopted, so it's not a surprise that queuing rubric score is so low. And we're implementing those this year fully. Mathematics, as you know, is in the middle of the revision process. And we look forward to those being revised. And it's not a surprise then that the queuing rubric score would be the highest of these because it's underway, will be adopted. Then I'm going to drop down to driver's education, which is the next highest. That's also a 0.15 increase from last year's queuing rubric. So it's trending upward. There is a desire, it's scheduled for 25-26. And as you know, it takes some time to go through the standards adoption process, but staff is recommending, based on this and feedback from the field, not just through the survey feedback, but also others, that we have a desire to update the driver's education standards. We hope you'll consider that in your discussion today. Physical education is the next highest score on the rubric. That also is a 0.13 increase from the prior year, so it's trending up. We also are aware that Representative Ballard is likely to run a bill on swimming safety that would impact the core standards in physical education to some degree in our state. And so staff has a desire for the board to initiate the process for standards revision on physical education as well. Library media is the next highest one. It's actually decreased. It's down by 0.12 points on the queuing rubric score. And the specialist, your specialist, Davina, has indicated that it's her recommendation that we would wait a little while to update these standards, primarily because so much change has been initiated on the media specialist. And to give a little bit of time for that to settle, the water to calm, and before reinitiating. And the queuing rubric, especially seen a decline in score from the prior year, would likely support that as well. So that's the comments that I had prepared, and then we're certainly open to try to address questions that any of you have.
So just to review, the staff recommendations that would require our action would be to move the driver education and the physical education standards review forward in terms of time schedule. Right now, driver education is scheduled for 25, 26. They want to begin immediately, I assume. And physical education is this year, so we can go ahead. What action should we take in order to be supportive of our staff's request on those two content areas?
Yeah, if the committee wants to do that, it would just be this is listed as an action item. You'll notice in the memo, we did not put a specific recommendation, just that the committee will recommend to the board which course standards, if any, that you warrant for revision. And if those two are what you end up wanting to revise, you just make a motion to direct staff to initiate the standards revision process for driver's education and physical education.
And remind me, those
Board
end up
members.
being, those end up being an action item or on the consent calendar? I believe they're an action item on the board. Is that right? They used to be on the consent calendar.
Yeah, it's my understanding they'll come out of this committee as an action item, and then you'll report those to the full board and they'll take action on it in the
And then
November meeting.
following that action would be the beginning of reaching out to put the parent review committee together, right? That would make recommendations.
Yeah, I think it's a 13-step process.
Yeah.
And that would just initiate.
It just
that.
starts that
We
whole
would-
process.
Yeah, we
And
would get going, and we would then need to make decisions about allocating resources financially and time to get that process going.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I would be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank
Make a
you.
motion that the committee recommend to the board that we what's the word? It's not redo. Oh, you've got it.
Revise.
Revise. Okay, that the recommend that direct staff to begin,
Okay,
wait,
yeah,
move that the committee recommends to the board to direct staff to begin the standards revision process for driver's education and physical education standards.
all right, we have a motion from Board Member Earl that moving that the committee recommends to the board to direct staff to begin the standards revision process for driver's education and physical education standards. Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're now ready to move to 2.6. Yes.
How often does this rubric come in front of us?
Every year.
Every year. So this is the moment, right? For the core standards. Or
For each of the areas that we develop standards.
the
for.
core area. Okay. Thanks.
And so you can see on the far right up there on the screen,
Or
the normal dates when, unless we hear that, oh, we've really got to jump on world languages right now. Because if we don't, it won't come up until 2028, 2029. So the 7-year cycle is in process unless at this moment, we engage and say, well, we'd like to possibly move this content area that's not scheduled for 4 more years because we heard a lot of feedback or we have concerns about whatever, then we could initiate at this point. And the rubric and the information that was shared by Darren and the team gives us feedback from the field as to concerns. So that's where we got this center column of information in terms of 0.52% or 0.73% in mathematics, feel that we definitely need to be giving some attention to this right now.
Okay.
Rather than waiting.
Okay.
even at the time frame, we don't have to, like, even if it reaches 2026, if there's not a significant need, there's no need to go through the process,
Right.
right? Then we would
The
just move the
13
date
steps.
out for another 5 years or whatever. And then we would either put it on for that, or if there was significant change again, based on the percent. Am I stating that accurately?
Patty.
And forgive me, but I think this is a really good time to also state that just looking forward to next month with the CTE standards. And I think there are between 60 to 80 Yeah, a bunch of them that will be coming. And so just block off your calendars for the rest of the month so that you'll have time for those standards to review for the November meeting. So.
One thing I had a question. I know one of the first votes that I took like almost 2 years ago was the ELA. And I was really sad that the grammar wasn't like built in. So I know we have that today. I like that conversation is happening today. And maybe I can have another conversation. I would love to have the ELA brought back and only to have that built into our core standards. But I know, and I'm looking through the document here. It's a 40-page document around grammar. And we have all of our ELA core guide for all the different grade levels here. Is somebody available that we could just have that quick conversation before we move on from this line item? Do we feel that, okay. And I'm going to put you on a spot and I apologize, but I do see we've got a whole information item for that. Yes.
Yeah, good question. Is your question perhaps, is there a way to incorporate what's in those guides and what's in that into it so that it's similar to what we just did, incorporated by references like the rule as a rule, but now it's incorporated by reference as the standards?
Ask me that again. Sorry, say.
See, how do I ask that?
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
So you're saying to actually reference in the standards
Yes.
so that it is part of the standards and not separate.
So that way you don't have to go through the entire standards piece of it, but you can then add that in because it's already been developed, you can just incorporate it by reference into the standards themselves.
It could be a compromise.
I'm not sure.
No.
Yeah,
No,
I
I know. Well, I know. I think my question is because I asked this question actually to you just to clarify, like if what is in the standards we test on, if it's not in there, we don't test on that. And so they weren't built in, so we're not testing on grammar. And I think we missed an opportunity to help students have really solid language arts skills and abilities. So if we could incorporate by reference, we could do that. I would love to see grammar built in from K to 12. I do see a lack of that ability in students. And I hear it from college teachers as well that, they're coming and they're giving me a paper that's like a text message. There's a lot of that need that genuinely exists. So what is that conversation that we could have where grammar becomes the forefront for our ELA? And maybe it's there. Maybe we do feel that it's there. So can we just have that quick conversation? I might be jumping
this agenda item up. Is that what that's?
It kind of feels like that's what I'm doing, but I'm like,
We need to make a motion.
it kind of just tags with what we're just doing here though, because it's right there. So
Do you want to just make a motion?
Can
that
we?
Bring the information.
I make a
that we address the
motion.
information item right now. Does that sound?
Yeah. Go for it.
Because it would be the same conversation that I would be having based on when we get to the information item.
Are you ready to do that? We don't have to do that.
And Julie.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes, that's fine. If we want to make the motion to move that up, I'm ready to speak to you about that
Okay.
right now. So that's fine.
Great.
All right.
So make that motion.
Okay, make a motion that we move agenda item 10 to now.
Okay. Were those in favor, say aye. Aye. We're moving item 10.
Information item.
Yeah.
Mary, if we're still talking about core revisions, this is an action item.
But we
We
we're
voted.
just moving. We already voted on that. We're
And I
actually
guess
moving
But there would be action.
Right, no.
Okay, just wanted to make
It
sure.
would
we-
have-
Okay.
And I guess that's what I'm struggling with, because for me, it's like if I have an opportunity, because this is on the agenda, to
Oh,
bring
I see.
ELA back.
Okay,
Asking
okay.
to bring the motion, so you're asking perhaps to bring the motion back and add ELA grammar to this piece right here to review and revise. And then another way of doing that would be to have another motion that could say incorporate by reference, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So this
If
would be the
that has
time
to
for
be
an action
separate,
item.
then we
And
can
then-
wait.
Right?
That needs to be in the action item if you're going to do something.
Yes.
Yeah. To bring back the one that you.
One, yeah.
We don't know whether we want to bring it back yet because we just don't have all the information. So after listening to the information, then we might be better prepared to make a motion in that.
Correct.
regard.
At that point in
Okay.
time, you could just ask for an agenda item for next month and then at any point in time, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
are we clear?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, can I just add something in this? It's, I think, part of your
Please.
discussion. So as you consider a revision to standards, and this sometimes comes up from the field, like in this Q&A rubric, there's some survey question, people respond, they don't want to change everything. They've got some specific thing. But the rule itself says if the board determines that a set of core standards warrant revision, the board shall direct superintendent to establish a standard review committee. So it's the whole thing, or I don't see a way in the rule to just focus on grammar. It would be reopening the English language arts standard revision, starting the process over according to the rule.
Mhm.
And that's certainly board can do that. You have the power to either bring back and initiate that in an upcoming month. This agenda item we put on regularly every fall, but at any time a board member could request standard revision to be brought to committee and discussed. There are significant costs associated with the revision of, especially of ELA, but I just don't see in the rule a way to do just a fragment of it.
Okay.
And maybe I can ask a question along that lines, because and I'm just thinking we have financial literacy, we have some other things hanging out there that we've asked about the success sequence, right? And our health standards. Is it, if there's any modification, it has to go through the full process? Is that what I'm understanding? Or we would have to create a modified process?
Yeah, so the core standards, which are these particular
Mhm.
areas, are defined under this rule, this
Mhm.
internal policy 3002, the CTE, and you've felt this as board members, like feels different. We're handling these courses in
Yeah.
a different way. They fall under a different process and policy. So any course that falls under these core, what are defined as core standards, according to the rule, you would be directing the superintendent to start the revision process if you wanted to make changes to those.
Okay.
So we'd have to change the rule if we wanted to do just a part of it or something.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Your question.
we moved, but we haven't voted. Do we want to have the information item now? On
Emily, what do you want to?
English?
Yes.
Yes. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, go for it.
Thank you. Julie Clark, Literacy and Early Learning Coordinator with the Utah State Board of Education. I am here today to give some information about our English language arts standards and the process that we've gone through for implementing those, and then the support documents, the core guides that were created, and incorporating that grammar piece into it. So the standards were approved in the spring of 2023. So during the summer of 2023, LEA leaders and teachers were provided professional learning opportunities around the state to learn about the changes to the standards and how to implement those in their classroom instruction. Last year was the first full year LEAs were responsible for ensuring that teachers were implementing these new standards in their language arts teaching and in the schools. Throughout the last year, we have had the writing committee create the core guides to support the standards implementation. They were released to teachers last spring, and they were shared with literacy directors, curriculum directors. They've been posted on our USBE elementary and secondary ELA websites. They've been shared directly with teachers twice during the mass email that went out in the spring, and then again that went out in the fall. And they're also posted on our UEN eMedia Hub for them to have access to. As a note, all of the core guides that are attached, some of them do say final at the end of their document title. That is just how they were named in the process going back and forth with our graphic designer. So some of them say final and some of them don't, but they are all final documents and have all been made ADA compliant to be able to be posted on our website. In each of the core guides, so each grade level of the core guides, there is the grammar and conventions progression chart at the end, and it's the last 2 pages before the back cover. The table provides suggested list of grammar and conventions for teachers to use when implementing the P through 12 English language arts standards. Yeah, if you want, thank you for going to the end, whoever is driving. Teaching grammar and conventions is a component of overall language instruction. So therefore, the instruction needs to be embedded. The grammar and conventions, we kind of call those the language standards that were in our previous standards. Those have been embedded throughout the reading and the writing and the speaking and listening standards. So instead of being taught in isolation, they're taught while reading, while writing, while speaking and listening, rather than those isolated skills. So it becomes a more authentic way of teaching the grammar, and so that teachers can engage with students. They are pointing those things out in the stories that they're reading, they're pointing them out in their writing, they're working with the students on those specific things. And then the other document that was attached in the backup is a brand new. It was just barely released to our teachers, and so Dr. Naomi Watkins, our secondary ELA specialist, she's not able to be with us today. She worked with Debbie Dean, who is a professor at BYU, and they released this Bringing Grammar and Language to Life. And this is an article that has been posted on our secondary ELA website, and it has been shared with elementary and secondary literacy directors. And this article outlines evidence-based practices for teaching grammar and language arts, and emphasizing the shift from the traditional isolated grammar instruction to a more integrated and engaging approach within the context of reading and writing. So it talks to the teachers about how they can do this embedded language instruction with the text that they are working with. So it becomes more meaningful and more authentic for teaching in the language in reading and writing materials. This guide recommends daily practice such as sentence combining to help students develop sentence sense and grammatical awareness. And it also details how grammar instruction can be incorporated into reading and writing lessons, focusing on the effects of grammatical traces on meaning and tone. And the guide addresses common challenges like test preparation and assessment, offering practical strategies and a list of recommended resources. So overall, this aims to help support our teachers in those ways to really build that grammar instruction into their reading, writing, and speaking and listening instruction that they do throughout the day. So it is embedded in those standards in that more authentic way. So do you have any questions?
Okay, so one example that I have currently seen was a 5th grader that had in a charter school that brought back their assignment, and it had all of a little paragraph, age appropriate for 5th graders, and they had gone through and they had taught all of those markings, and this thing, I don't know the names of them. I'm like, I feel like a caveman right now. Let me draw you a picture. But it was a beautiful paper. It was just inspiring because I'm like, that student will be able to edit their work, other people's work. I mean, that is a skill set that is just treasured. And that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for in our ELA. And I've read through this Grammar and Language to Life. For me, if I'll just all of this is a work of art, and it's still lacking specifics that I'm kind of looking to see. So my question is, how have we, now that we're a year in, how have we seen teachers be able to bring that type of fifth grade specific grammar lesson into their classrooms? Have we seen examples of that?
So I'm not going to speak directly to fifth grade because I haven't been in lots of fifth grade classrooms. We spend a lot of our time in those K-3 spaces, especially since I moved from the specialist position into the coordinator position. So last year I was in a lot of the K-3 spaces. But what we do see is we see that teachers they have a story, they're reading, and then they're pointing out, say, a noun, a verb, an adjective, and then maybe they're working on in writing. I need to make sure I'm writing a complete sentence that has a noun and a verb. And then I need to make sure I have my capital and my period at the end. And that's what I'm looking at working on doing. So they're talking to the students as they're reading the stories, and then they're connecting those stories that they're reading to their writing project, so that they're making the connections between reading and writing. And then when they look at their writing pieces, those are the things that they are looking for, that they are incorporating. Now, they may not at that time be grading them on, oh, do you have a comma in the right place? But that's not the skill that they would be working on at that time. So they're looking for, are they incorporating the things that we have taught and use those in their writing? And then, they're providing feedback. They have a lot of students looking at each other's work to provide feedback. They're using student examples to provide feedback on what to look for and how to make those corrections. And then we talk to students a lot about, revising is making it sound good. Editing is making it look good, right? And so those different types of pieces. So, maybe we're talking with our neighbor and we're working on, does it sound okay? Are we revising to make sure it sounds correct and it makes sense? Because a lot of the times we're writing things down and it sounds right in our head, but when it comes out on paper, it doesn't exactly match that. So, when we read it to our neighbor, or our neighbor reads it, or our teacher reads it and provides feedback on, is there clarity? And it helps the students with those specific skills that they're working on at that time. And they're connecting, it to what they can see in their writing, in their stories that they're working on in their reading, and connecting that to their writing so that it's more cohesive and more authentic for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We in letters, the unit 8 in letters is all about writing and how to help teachers teach writing better and connect it to their instructional practices with their reading. And it talks about sentence building and how to help students build sentences and add to sentences so that it's not just the girl ran down the street. Why did the girl run down the street? The girl ran down the street to catch the ball, or, so it really walks them through how to add that writing into it. We also did do a teacher survey this last spring, asking teachers how confident did they feel about teaching the specific pieces of literacy. And writing was the one that came back with less than 50% of teachers feeling confident in teaching writing. So our team, we were very grateful that the Carry Forward passed yesterday, because one of the things that we have proposed to do is a writing professional learning for teachers in grades K-6 this year. And so we are looking to be able to provide that, because we saw the need from the survey that is what the teachers are wanting. They want that support in how to help them be better writing instructors. So we are looking to do that and provide that support to them. So
do we have the feedback on the grammar part, like that, sentence structure?
So that is not a specific category that we look at as one of our top 5 things with literacy instruction. We look at phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and writing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, because I went down through these too, and we're looking for very specific things, right? I can put them in my finder.
Yeah.
So I just looked at, this is in 4th grade, the editing process. And actually, I want to just tell you thank you, because when we did past the standards, I felt they were too broad. And I conveyed that to Jennifer Thronson and others, saying, when you put the core guides together, you better put some meat on the bones, right? Because the way it's written right now, they're just too broad. But I really do feel like you put the meat on the bones, and maybe we're still working on finishing the product. But I'm just looking down through here, and I don't know that this answers your question specifically, but I'm looking at the writing process under 4W4. Analyze a prompt, use graphic organizers, and then later it has collaborate with peers to organize, revise, and edit, and then it's revise independently, edit independently. So there's that initial, we're working with others, they're giving me feedback, and then it's, okay, now it's my responsibility to finish it out. And I'm guessing that's where that more meaty, right?
Yeah.
To go back to our illustration comes from. And I'm just putting a plug in for our new strategic plan because, and this is the way I'm viewing it. Mission and vision, you have these focus areas coming from from different parts of USBE, so to speak. And instead of having 4 goals, you, as your department, would write a goal that is influenced by those focus areas. To me, what I'm hearing from what you're saying is a great goal for your department this year, right, would be to get this mechanism out that's going to empower educators. And then maybe you train 150, whatever, right, of your, specialists out there. That would be an incredible goal for this school year, right, or the next year. And that's the kind of thing I see goals coming from, not from these broad goals, but actually this department, this is what we do. This is the feedback we got, and this is the empowerment. Sorry, I'm just throwing that out there. But then it's an empowerment for you on the specialist. It gives you autonomy to do what you need to do. And I think that answers a little bit of the question. I don't know if it's the full question, but I was seeing the things in here I wanted to see. Like I said, I felt like it was broader. I'm hoping when we do math, it's not just broad, but it's got more meat to it. And I think we tried to articulate that earlier, and it feels like that's where that was going with the mastery. So, and now I'm rambling, but.
I think, and I highlighted this 2 years ago too, was this grammar book that was from Macmillan Publishing, like 1984 or something. And I bought one off of eBay, and I use it for my daughter, and the repetition of going through and underlining and double underlining the compound, and all of that just was so beneficial. You're able to deconstruct a sentence so well when that type of learning happens. I think we forget how we're adults. We've done it all, right? Like, we're over it. Like, let's make things easier. We don't want to underline things anymore. But a child is new to all of these concepts. And I would argue the right for them to have that presented to them in a very, I mean, we use the word age appropriate, but an age appropriate way. Repetition is a good thing. They're not only reading, but they have to read the one sentence over and over and over and over again to isolate what that word is that they are supposed to underline once, and then the other word that they have to underline twice. So there's like, we can't forget, and then to take your pencil and underline once and not blend it into the sentence underneath it, or write that sentence out. I mean, there's all the components of learning that go into, just true blue, like, grammar. So I'm seeing that it's the SL.3 is where they do give a nod, and that then changes for every grade level. So 1 SL3, 2 SL3, so forth. So they do say the word grammar. So then that makes me wonder, our teachers, when they are getting their degree, do they have a class on grammar for children? Like, in their teaching courses, do our teachers have to take a course on how to teach grammar to K through 12 children? And you don't have to know that, but I'm like, if our teachers don't know, but they're graduating with a teacher degree, but they don't know how to do this, maybe we could have that discussion and say, this is what we're seeing. There's a disconnect. and you go one step back to the, to the next.
I was just going to say, we don't have much control over what the universities are putting in their educator preparation courses. So do you have anything to add to that, Patty?
Sure, Mayor.
Please.
Yeah. It's also specific to the licensing type of, so for example, a K-6 teacher would do something that is very specific to, it's an overarching kind of thing. So they would be most likely to have a class that is a grammar, because it'd be how to teach English language arts to K-6 students. Similar to, they have a class on math and they usually have a class on science. I think those are the three areas that are usually in most would cover that. But then if you're a secondary and you're going to a secondary degree, it wouldn't have that as a general course because it would go into your content area first.
Okay. All right. Well,
Which
I don't know how
brings
to
up our teacher education standards,
get-
right?
what I want here.
And if I may,
Some of the things I'm thinking are a part of the curriculum as well. And so if you take the overarching standard and we're looking at some of these, then the next step of that would be then how do we get to that overarching standard? So in my mind, when you're thinking about the book that you saw, I was thinking about that is the outcome of the standard. So to be able to get to what this overarching statement is, this standard, then they would use this curriculum and strategies to be able to accomplish that. So some of those things that you might see as missing are maybe just the next step.
For me, I would say maybe the disconnect then would be just the repetition part of it. Because a child and having a certain type of workload, there's the point where something can be lost along the way. And what I believe we're seeing is grammar. That is the first, it's not even on the top 5, if I'm understanding correctly. But I don't know. Yeah, what do you?
Chair, may I? Yeah. So grammar is not something that they consider as like a pillar of language arts. So it's because it is embedded with the language in the comprehension and the writing and the understanding of that. So because it's embedded into all of the different places, it's not kind of its standalone pillar for literacy. And so it is just a piece of and to your repetition, our hope is that as teachers are teaching it here, we've explicitly taught it this week with our story and with our writing. And then next week, we're going to continue that. And then we're going to add something else to it. So, we're hoping that, as students learn it, we're going to continue to check that and make sure they're doing it. And it's not like we've taught it once and we're done. It will come back around and we will scaffold and we will have our scope and sequence come back to those concepts. Because think about when we teach, your capital and your period, but then we make a compound sentence. So then we're going to take that period and we're going to extend it and we're going to add the word and or something, a conjunction to combine those sentences together. And so, we're going to build on it, and it might become more of a complex grammar piece the more we go, right? Because we don't throw, really hard grammar concepts at our first grade students, right? But what we expect is those first grade students remember what they learned and then build on it as they continue to grow and learn. So, and it keeps coming back. So
I also have some help from the field. I love the fact that we have this technology as well. And so this is just coming in that we do have control over what the universities teach. And that's through the establishment of our math and competencies, endorsement programs, those types of things that can help inform what our teacher programs are doing and what our teachers are learning at that same time. So those are some of the things that USBE does have that influence and control over.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well,
it
good,
makes
good.
sense.
I will tell, yes.
Right. It makes sense that would be.
Yes, this was Nathan Ox, so I'll
Thank
call him
you.
out. Thank you, Nathan Ox, so for letting us know.
I love that idea of that communication. So my question, when you say they don't consider it a pillar of language arts, who's they?
Oh, sorry, may I, Chair? That would be the literacy experts and those that have the National Reading Panel and the people who study and have built the pillars of literacy.
Yeah. I disagree with them. Like in a big way.
This may be a good question next time we have our panel come before the board, right?
Yeah.
Our reading panel, is that what they're called?
Science of
Science and
reading.
reading panel to
Mhm.
actually ask them to delve into this and provide us the research around this
Mhm.
topic, right?
Sure.
I mean, this
Sure,
would
yeah,
be the
this-
next, I would
could
feel
we-
like that
could we
would
take
be,
a note of that, like to
Yeah.
follow up. Like I would actually like that conversation. And if I may
Yeah.
make an argument as to why I would disagree. I've served on this one specific committee that's outside of you can sign up for this and you read papers. And I won't say what specific thing it is, but you know, I have done this for 2 years now. And part of the rubric is not to look at the grammar on it. It's more to look at the kind of what is being said and if it's coherent. So it's the pillars that you just mentioned, actually. But as far as if our goal is to provide our students with the abilities for real world experience upon graduation, I will tell you there is one of these papers that stood out just 10 steps above the other. And it's like they would get hired. And it's frustrating to me because one out of this many, one had what I would deem the sixth pillar of literacy because they had grammar and it was it was a beautiful paper. I would argue that grammar helps you formulate your thoughts better because you can visually see it organized better on a page. And so I want what this one person had, I want that extended to these other students because their voice would be magnified better, their stories would be more clear. The impact that they would have on their influence would open up 10 times more, opportunities. So I'm like, what do you do? Okay, we're going to have the reading panel come. I also want to make a motion that at USBE, our sixth pillar is grammar. And I want that added. I don't know if I can do that though.
Get more board members and they're not agenda. It's not.
Okay, sure. You probably are going to see that. Anyway, I really appreciate the conversation though. And I guess from here, if we could communicate with that relationship with the universities and argue that point, repetition, specific lessons, and trying to quantify that, trying to test that and see, can we get this type of paper instead of our college professors saying kids write like they're texting out a little message, like we need grammar. So anyway, I'm good. Thank you so much.
So one of the pillars is writing. And could you just break down for us what that pillar entails? How much is grammar a part of writing?
Grammar is a part of writing. So writing would be your sentence structure, your tone, your theme, your voice, and your author's purpose. All of those different pieces work into writing, and as well as the grammar being a piece of that. But grammar is also something that is in literacy when we're reading as well. We have to understand the grammar in the text that we're reading to be able to comprehend and understand that as well. So, when we talk about a story and the student first reads the character's name, and then later on in the story, they're referred to as she or he or they or something else, they have to understand that that is referring back up to the characters that were presented before in the story. So grammar is not just something that happens in writing, it also happens in reading, and it also happens when we're speaking to others. We have to understand the grammar to be able to communicate in all pieces of language. So
I totally resonate with the integration. Teaching for 43 years at the university level, in my field, integration was every day. I mean, that we approached everything through an integrated model, but we could only teach integration if the individual pieces were already a part of the student's usable vocabulary. And if they hadn't spent the time in the ballet studio, working at the bar, developing the core strength, the flexibility, the control, they could not integrate those basic skills that could only be learned at the ballet bar with the singing and the acting and the dancing and the storytelling. And we could stop and point out what was missing in terms of flexibility or strength in the body position, and how that was a distraction or how that was getting in the way of being able to do the storytelling. But the only solution was to send them back to the ballet studio, and they had to bring that area of skill up to a certain level in order to be able to successfully integrate. So integration is something that as they become more advanced, they become more proficient at, because all of the basic foundational skills are in place, and integration then becomes a way of living and communicating, and of course we want that for everybody. So I am totally supportive of the idea of beginning integration earlier, so that it's something that they grow up with and they are comfortable with, and they begin to think in more complex ways naturally, and they don't get stressed out about it. It's just, that's the way, if I want to communicate with you, I'm going to have to integrate a lot of basic foundational skills in that process of communicating with you. So that's awesome. But at some point in the curriculum, at some point in the progression through the standards, we have to make sure that those foundational elements have had space and have had repetition and have had the time, and a teacher, some teachers are really good at integration and some teachers are not. And so your idea of getting the professional development to help those teachers acquire a group of skills and practices that will empower them to provide for the students what they're needing flexibly, so that each individual student can be dealt with it where they're at we start where they're at and we move them forward. It is a great plan for resources that might be available right now. But I totally, sometimes standards are beautiful and comprehensive and carefully artistically crafted, and so much thought and so many questions have been answered before they actually form the standard. But after that beautiful thing is put on paper and this is what we're working for, the real work begins, because we have to figure out how will we attain, okay, we're going to roll up our shirt sleeves, we're going to get our hands dirty, we're going to get on our hands and knees, whatever it takes, we're going to figure out how to get to that exalted, wonderful goal in the future. And so I think there's just a concern that perhaps in reaching for perfection, since we're not perfect, we just have a whole bunch of little things that we've got to address and make each other aware of in order for us to really honestly progress towards that eye in the sky goal of being able to read, write, listen, communicate, be literate. So I can understand the concern, and I do hear a lot, I hear a lot of parents, they're saying, oh, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. I mean, we need to go back to the old days, get out our pencil and paper, get rid of the Chromebooks, get rid of, we want reading, writing, and arithmetic, and I'm just going, oh, I roll my eyes and I'm thinking, okay, we have progressed, but in some ways, in some classrooms, we have not progressed. And that'll always be our challenge to try to enthusiastically be the cheerleader and bring everybody along. But there's no way that we can achieve what we want to achieve without having dealt with those basics. And the teachers have to figure out, and we have to help them figure out how to deal with those basics to the point that integration becomes an ever increasingly effective way of moving children along the pipeline to success and confidence. Well, that was a big, long, I apologize, but I understand the frustration. I'm not sure how we solve it, but without any question, those foundational issues have got to be dealt with. And I know that teachers recognize the importance of that, but when you're looking at this amazing standard, the way to get there with these basics is sometimes elusive. You know that. I didn't need to say it. I'm just kind of trying to communicate what I'm feeling.
And I resonate with the whole example of ballet. I've always was a dancer for a little while, not very, but for a little while. And my argument is always that if you want your core of being a good dancer is ballet.
Yep.
Because it teaches you proper alignment. You want to spin, do 6 pirouettes, like you're going to have a good core. If not, you'll never make it past a double.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in anything moving forward, that the foundational concepts are very proudly mentioned and listed in any standard moving forward. And for us to have the conversations about what foundational academic knowledge means and weight it very heavily in what our standards are. Because again, if it's not in the standards, it's not going to be tested. So I want it tested. Like it's been given a nod to in SL.3. I want like specifics, but anyway, so I appreciate the conversation. And yeah, Patty.
I think we all appreciate the conversation. And one of the things that I can say is I think that everyone agrees on the importance of grammar and the foundational piece of it and what it looks like for the building of the core. I like that example as well. And I think staff also are fully aware of that. One of the things that I'm wondering is it might be also about vocabulary. When we think of a pillar, sometimes we look at that as stronger than something that's woven through, but sometimes the rebar and the cement is just as important as the cement itself. Or I'm a horrible analogist, so please just
I think that was good.
strike that. But to me, the grammar is the rebar. And it's interwoven, it's throughout. So I don't, and so maybe the fact that it's not mentioned as a pillar, but instead, to me, it's like a cross-cutting concept in science. So in science, we might have something that is the cross-cutting concept of, let me just be really like, we might have a cross-cutting concept of effect, or help me out.
Let's grab one of our science folks.
Help me out, science. Anyways, it'll be one of the cross-cutting concept, which means it's addressed everywhere, every grade level, throughout the entire thing. So it's in, but if we go back to language arts, it's addressed in the writing, it's addressed in all of the areas instead of just in the pillar itself. And so to me, the strength comes in, maybe it's the vocabulary term that some are weighting the word pillar more than interwoven. And so let's have a conversation. We would love to say, and bring whatever back that you'd like for us to, but I don't think we're clear on what to bring back yet. And so let's have that conversation first. And then if you want to say, and you don't need to direct us to meet with you. We can meet and just say, what is that conversation and what does that look like? And then how does that influence next steps? But I don't know that we're 100% clear yet at this point in time to say, what would we bring back? And so we would love to have that conversation.
And Chair, can I add just a
Of
comment
course.
to the question about, or your request to have it tested, to have grammar be included in some kind of a statewide assessment? I'll use the example that Andrea's got up here. So this is second grade. We don't test standards in second grade like we do third grade and above, but take that standard. Students will learn to write a variety of tasks, purposes, and audiences using appropriate grammar, convention, syntax, and style. So if the board directed staff to include writing in the assessments, there was a time when writing was tested in grades 3 through 10. And then because of pressures or concerns from the community about too much time for statewide testing, over time that was reduced from two writing prompts in each grade to one writing prompt in each grade to now we test in 5th and 8th grade writing only. But the way that that's written, that would be if we were directed to include writing in the ELA testing for grades 3 through 8, you would see outcomes that would be measuring grammar and conventions and syntax because it would be tested as part of the writing process. So that's something else you can think about as you consider how to achieve your goal. That's a way that could be done.
Got good people here. Thank you so much for the update and for the conversation, for allowing us to whatever we did. All right. Now then, we're getting a little short on time. Welcome, Tanya. We have item 2.6.
Hey, Chair Booth, this is Sarah. I'm here.
Good. Welcome. Glad that you're here.
I got to hear your whole analogy speech. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I loved it sincerely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're glad that you're here. And we're now going to hear for just a moment from Tanya, who can just give us a quick little background. This is what we need to accomplish in the next few minutes.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Tanya Albornoz. I'm the coordinator for prevention here, and we're here today to talk about the minimum guidelines for child sex abuse and human trafficking prevention materials. As you may remember or recall, these materials are required to be submitted to the board for approval. And so as a matter of practice, staff have put together, or in the past, they put together some minimum guidelines for organizations who will submit materials so that they know what are the minimum things that they need to include in the materials for approval. So what happened in the past was we had a statute that passed for child sex abuse, and then a couple of years after that, a statute passed for human trafficking prevention materials. And we had in the past 6 sets of guidelines, one for materials for students, one for materials for educators, or what we call adult serving youth, and then one for parents and guardians. That was very confusing for organizations who were submitting. There was a lot of redundancy between the 2 sets of materials, between the guidelines. And so, as you also may remember, we had some conversation about this a couple of months ago in July. And this committee requested that we do a revision of those minimum guidelines and come back. And so we have done that now. We convened a committee, which included our experts from the Department of Health and Human Services, that are over child sex abuse and human trafficking. It included others that would be involved in the review process for the materials. We had some experts, some child abuse investigator experts, some medical professionals that work in this area. We had some teachers. We had also some survivors of child sex abuse and human trafficking. And they all helped to go through the minimum guidelines, and we combined those into 3 sets of guidelines, which are one set for student material, and this is elementary student material, one set for adult serving youth material, and one set for parent and guardian material. There's a lot of redundancy between them, and that was intentional. We wanted to make sure that they were aligned across all 3 sets of guidelines, and that we use the same language and the same terms and the same concepts as we teach all those different groups. You'll also see that we included a lot more instruction for organizations who will submit to make it much clearer. We always had a lot of confusion when people would want to go to submit materials. So we included a lot of that instruction for those organizations to make it clear what the expectations were. We submitted them to you. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. I did want to say that the first, I think about 17 items on both rubrics are the same. And that came from the generic rubric that the RIMS process is requiring all sets of materials to include.
Primero, porque tengo mucho.
That's Elise. I'm not speaking Spanish. I could tell you, but that's all right. And then I was made aware this morning that some of those were condensed. They were maybe combined. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that, we have with those first 17 items, I took them directly from this generic rubric. Oh, you had it up there just a second ago. And we, I understand that there may be some desire to also condense those on this minimum guidelines as well. In talking with Terry Davis this morning, and she's here to help support me, I think what we might consider a good approach today moving forward is to take off those items that I put on there and just refer to this rubric so that as changes are made to this, we're aligned with our minimum guidelines. So that's my suggestion for today. I apologize that I didn't realize that until this morning, but that's my suggestion for moving forward with those items. The rest of the rubric are items very specific to child sex abuse prevention and human trafficking. You'll see that there's 2 different sections because some organizations submit for both. Some organizations have expertise only in human trafficking or only in child sex abuse, and they just want to submit for one or another. We wanted to give them the option to do either or both. So that's why we included all of the items into one rubric. So with that short introduction, I'm open to questions.
You want me to start with it? This is a big one. It used to be youth student instructional materials. Now it says elementary, but in the law, we still have to approve. And then it says we don't approve for secondary. That's not how I read the law. I'm reading the law. It says an LEA shall provide once every 3 years training and instruction on child sex abuse, human trafficking, prevention, and awareness to school personnel in elementary and secondary schools on. Okay, that's the personnel.
Yeah.
Are we saying we're only approving on elementary?
So if you go further down in the statute, the approval is only for elementary. It states that specifically in the statute. So I would have to get to that statute really fast.
53G 9207. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would we not approve for the older grades? I just don't. Why would we not? Even if we don't have to? Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
3 and 4. Where's the kind of where it
So in 4A, it says in accordance with subsection 4B and 5, an LEA may provide instruction on child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention and awareness to elementary school students using age appropriate curriculum. And then later on, it says that the board will approve that in 4A. So let me see where that is. The state board shall establish a process. Oh, wait, no, sorry. That's not the right.
3A. And was that different?
school personnel.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I find. It's where it says that they'll provide approval. I'm trying to find that.
And I guess I'm looking at 3B. An LEA shall use the instructional materials approved by the state board. Are we saying there's like a loophole that because it doesn't specifically say secondary, even though it does say secondary personnel and it says parents, that we're saying because it doesn't outline it, even though it says instructional materials.
We were instructed that the approval process was only for elementary materials. That's correct. Because
It hasn't been though, right?
it has been to this point.
Okay.
Other instruction
Before
about,
it said youth, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's only elementary?
that's the reason we changed the verbiage, is because that created a lot of confusion. We had a lot of organizations submitting materials for us for secondary. And the statute doesn't give us authority to approve that or not. So the reason we changed the wording to elementary students was to make it clear that the only approval process that the board has is for elementary material, and the secondary, if they want to provide this type of instructional material in secondary settings, they have to go to the LEA. And usually it's integrated into health material, into the health class.
Yeah,
So.
would we, and I guess it maybe then understanding that, which I'm not sure I fully understand. I mean, I understand what you said, but I'm not sure if I totally agree with it here, just because we have to approve instructional materials. But in this area, but are you saying we give them no guidance? But we are giving them guidance because we're doing the adults, but we're saying, but whatever the curriculum is, we'll give you no guidance on that. And I'm looking at this as guidance, even though this is also, right, this is also the rubric.
Mhm.
All right, and I'm only asking the questions. I'm not, hopefully it doesn't.
That's correct.
So I just don't know, are we not giving any guidance then on the older students? And if not,
So again, that is generally done in health class.
okay,
And so through the health core curriculum, through the health core standards,
Okay.
we're giving instruction and guidance on what's provided to those secondary students.
okay,
And so I found it's in 2 in the statute. It says the state board shall approve in partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services age appropriate instructional materials for the training and instruction described in 3A and 4. And in 4, it states that that we're providing elementary prevention and awareness to elementary students.
Is that K through 5 or K?
We
through
say
6?
elementary because in some elementaries they have K through 6 and in some they have only to 5th grade. So that's why we've turned it elementary.
Okay, and so it's K through, could be up to 6th
Up to
grade.
6th grade if that's included, yes.
okay. So thank you. That was one of the, I'm like, why is that there?
So we do have input in terms of what is being taught to the secondary students, but just through our normal health standards procedure, our
Yes.
academic standards procedure, rather than, since we don't have academic standards for this content area at the elementary level.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Next thing. Ready? Could we add something on? Okay. These aren't numbered. I don't have page numbers. So this is really crazy. So it's under,
Yes, which
I'm
one?
looking at elementary student instructional materials. And so I guess if you can find
We will add page numbers. I apologize.
appropriate, that's okay, appropriate adult behavior, and then it gives examples of inappropriate, and then it talks about engaging in inappropriate private or sexually explicit social media interactions with the child. We've got to put cell phone on there, texting, messaging, because that's where we see so much when things come before UPAC with us. It's not social media that we're seeing. It's there.
Digital interactions might be.
Yeah.
better
And I would
term.
specifically put texting, because that's, at least in my experience, that's where we're seeing some of the biggest violations, is sending text messages. It could be on social media too. If we could just add that in there, just because and I'm just thinking of the violations we've seen, but it's those personal messages. And it could even be, I mean, you could do text messaging and media contacting or something. I don't know what that needs to say. Should I just keep going here? Just possible notes. Yeah.
I'm writing the motions.
Okay.
And so when it says add appropriate adult, and I'm not sure exactly where, so add appropriate adult.
Oh.
It says
we can get some language.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then,
It says engage
Appropriate adult behavior.
examples of inappropriate
Examples
adult
of
behavior
inappropriate.
may include, but are not limited to the following.
The language there is fine. I just, something about cell phone usage, that kind of communication or similar communication, that's where we're seeing the greatest violations. And of course, those are educators, but I'm sure that would apply to any adults or others.
under the heading of, what is the heading?
It says engaging.
Inappropriate adult behavior.
The examples are, well, the heading is appropriate adult behavior, but under it, it's examples of inappropriate adult behavior. Then under and can I just make a list of them, and then we can either separate them out or one at a time? Is that easiest, Patty?
Yeah, if you just want to read some off to me, then I'll just start
Okay.
typing, and then we can worry about the wording.
Then under the forms of human trafficking, we give a list of situations that are labor trafficking. Can we please give a list of things that are not labor trafficking, like doing jobs at your house because your mom and dad ask you, or I just think it's good to have a direct comparison, right? That these things are going to give us signs of labor trafficking. These things are not labor trafficking. Getting your homework done at night is not labor trafficking, right? There's certain things that aren't. And the only reason why I say this, because I remember when we discussed this last time, the language was very confusing. It was like, can I ask my kids to help me turn the water on and mow the lawn, right? I mean, there shouldn't be confusion there. There's things that are just not human trafficking,
Right.
because you participate in society or a family or a community group or whatever. So what things are not? Just a basic list. I would just recommend that, because we're giving the comparison in other areas. And I know Emily had a couple on this section. That's just kind of the questions I had right from the start. And if we pull those lists off and just refer to go here to look at with the media, instructional media stuff, then I think, yeah, because otherwise it just seems so long and messy here, right? Because really right? This is a 2 days, 45-minute lessons, right? We're putting proper protections in to make sure we're getting the right stuff in the right way. But when you really look at that's 2 lessons, right? Am I right? That's usually what it ends up being, 2 or 3 lessons.
Depending on the organization.
But it's not, I mean, we almost have written a booklet here. That's all I'm saying. In a good way, but. Okay, I don't, Emily, if you had some on that one.
I do just want to confirm what the class looks like. So through K through 6, is that 2 days in a row, or this is?
So this is delivered in a variety of ways, and that's what I was referring to when I said depending on the organization. You have seen examples of some of the materials that have come to you for approval.
Mm-hmm.
Some organizations teach it as a class where they have staff that go to the classrooms and teach it. Other organizations have these lessons online in an online module. There's a variety of different ways that it might. Another organization that I know of, they train the teacher or counselor to provide these lessons. So it can look different ways and it can be different lengths and it can have different items included in it. And that's why we are doing these minimum guidelines. And also that's why the materials themselves come to you for approval so that you can have a look at all of those and be able to approve or not approve when you deem it appropriate.
Okay, so it's not going to be like embedded into a specific curriculum.
No, these are different.
This is like
These are
this is
outside
like
of
the maturation program for 5th grade, but this is going to be child
abuse
protection. Yeah.
prevention.
This is outside of any other core curriculum, correct?
Okay.
You're just saying, are they integrated, right? Coming
Yeah.
from our last discussion.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so
Hold on. Oh, I was gonna say, I do have one other, under sexual misconduct, I didn't realize this. This is section 2. When you read it, the materials cover in an age appropriate way that any sexual act by an adult towards a child is not safe or appropriate. There are situations where the child may not feel uncomfortable, but it is still considered abuse. The materials should focus on the behavior of the adult and not the feeling generated by the child to define the abuse or inappropriate interactions. It's not just adults.
Correct.
We need to make sure we have in there, and I don't mind if we have a sentence about adults, but we also need to indicate that it could be other youth, other children. It's not just adults that do this. So
Correct.
I
We did
just,
include that in another place.
okay.
It is included that the abuse under the item that says anyone can be an
Okay.
abuser.
Oh,
We talk about how it could be different types of adults, but also children the same age or older children. So we do cover both of those concepts, but your point is a good one that we probably shouldn't.
yeah, because sexual misconduct is not just
Yeah.
done by adults. Okay. And it doesn't have to be much. It could just a little reference there. But
My question then comes, if there were a student that were being trafficked or abused, what happens when they say that out loud? Who do they go to? What are those steps and what does that look like for an LEA?
Generally, they would, so in many of these standards, or let's not call them standards, let's call them minimum guidelines.
Mm.
We encourage them to talk to an appropriate adult, right? Or an adult that they trust. That's what's all woven all throughout these guidelines. And then there's also a section where they can identify who those trusted adults might be. It could be a parent, it could be a relative, it could be a teacher, it could be a counselor. But the child, they're not encouraged to disclose they're in the classroom while they're having this lesson. They're encouraged to go disclose to an adult who they trust outside of these lessons. So that might look like any other disclosure of child abuse or neglect where it's disclosed. If it's disclosed to someone at the school, they would be required to make a report to DCFS.
Okay.
any other questions? Board Member Reel, did you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions at this time.
All right, thank you. So are we ready for a
Yeah,
motion?
one more question. This is around appropriate adult behavior. And it's just, we use the term good, modeling good adult behavior. So it's under, I don't know if you can find it, prohibition or prohibited discriminatory practices. And what is good adult behavior?
I thought, okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Let me see if I can find,
yeah, you're
thought that
good.
I thought that we had taken out all of those references.
Oh,
to it,
okay.
So
They're just, in the one I have, it maybe you have, in the one I have, which I think I printed it off of ours. So it's under appropriate adult behavior. If you can
and my
find
computer's
it.
frozen, so it's not much help, but
It's right there.
Is it there?
Yeah, modeling good adult behavior. What do we want there?
safe. Modeling appropriate, I would just say
Appropriate.
adult
Yeah,
behavior.
that would be fine. Because
okay.
good or bad, yeah. Unless we're going to define what good adult behavior is, but appropriate would work. So, okay.
Good. Anything else? All right, we're ready then for a motion. And we have it on the screen. Do you want to check and see if it includes everything that you've already mentioned?
And I just want to also say that as we're making those changes on one, remember I let you know that there's a lot of the similar language in all three guidelines. So as we make the change in one, we'll make sure to make those same changes in the other two.
We need to put that
Thank you.
into our motion now.
Yeah, and I also asked the committee for the ability to make technical changes as we continue to work on these.
This is the one right before that.
That as we
The
make the
same
change in one
language.
guideline, we'll make
That
the
it's
changes in,
corresponding throughout.
yeah,
Then technical changes as needed.
technical edits, yes.
We do. Yes, not recently. We were previously.
I'd say the corresponding changes.
The parent case, the adult. But it wasn't that.
Okay, so what we have here is the motion that member Earl has made is that the committee approve the minimum guidelines to child sexual abuse and human prevention materials as amended and forward to the board for full approval. And the amendments are under the examples of appropriate adult behavior, add examples of inappropriate behavior to include something about cell phone usage.
Chair
Under-
Booth,
Yes,
or I guess member Earl, do you think that we could add something there that I think cell phone's too specific? So we could just say like digital communications or something?
Yes.
I don't mind that, but I really.
I mean, I like the emphasis of cell
in the
phone, but I
UPenn
just like,
stuff we're seeing,
yeah,
it is.
it's emails and like in
texting.
the LMS.
But I know it
too,
can be
so
broader. So maybe it is
that's
digital
why I
media,
think that you should be broader.
including texting or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Both cell phone and.
Yeah. I just want the cell phone reference
Yeah,
because of the
including cell
text.
phone
Can we do
interactions. We can.
Yes,
address
yes, yes.
Cell phone and
interactions.
digital media interaction, because
Yeah.
a lot of that actually goes through those online gaming.
Yeah,
That's a
I think that
huge
works. Okay.
cell phone and digital media interaction.
You can
Under
just say
forms of
digital
human trafficking.
communications.
Go ahead, say that again.
The technical term is just digital communication.
Okay. Thank you. And under forms of human trafficking, add situation of labor trafficking, create a list of non-examples and things that are not labor trafficking. Under sexual misconduct, include that it can be anyone, not necessarily just adults. Under appropriate adult behavior, replace the word good with appropriate. As changes are made to one set of guidelines, the corresponding changes are made consistently throughout all three
Document.
sets of guidelines.
Yes, correct.
And technical changes will be made as needed.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good? That's the motion. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Board Member Reel?
Aye.
Thank you. That is
Thank you.
unanimous. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Oh, wait a minute though. We talked about sorry. We were talking about this one, right? Youth. I thought we were talking. Oh.
Youth, but then we
Yeah,
made that motion to
I have a
change.
few things in front, and I know that I thought whatever changed in this, you're not up to it yet.
No worries.
Things.
Go for it.
Do we talk about, when
When we get to the parent piece, and this is under the parents, so maybe, sorry, I didn't realize we're doing all at once. Is there something about teaching kids to trust that inner feeling in the parent piece? Is that ever talked about there? And if not, it needs to be. It just a slight paragraph about that we need to teach parents to tell their kids that if they're feeling unsafe, you know what I mean, that they've got to start trusting that inner feeling.
I believe that there is something along those lines. I'm wondering if you want me to find that now. What would you like from me?
I just, and it like it could be carried over from here, right? The language that's in there. I wrote it aside because I didn't see it, but maybe I missed it.
I think it's on the part where it talks about, my computer's frozen and I cannot.
When the child can say to the parent that they go unsafe. Is that the safety plan? Your safety plan, is it? You want to add something there?
And the only reason why I'm saying that, I just think it needs to be spelled out. Here it has trust your feelings, not just, and it's not just under, if you feel unsafe, leave a situation. It's actually just pointing out in a highlighted area, trust your feelings. Empower children to listen to and trust their feelings. This includes anything from an uneasy feeling to being alone with an adult to an inappropriate. I just transferred over, right? And I just didn't see that in there. There could be pieces of it being unsafe here, unsafe there.
So it says under appropriate physical contact. Okay. Anything that leaves us feeling unsafe, confused, or uneasy and uncomfortable.
Oh, there is.
And yeah, I was
sorry, I missed it
getting
then.
to the
Okay.
intuition piece as well.
Okay, we're good then. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes. Yeah. I think we're okay there. One other item is if you go under examples of risks for children or youth who are susceptible to a higher risk, may include, but are not limited to, those who, I would ask that we have, and we don't use this in code, but we frequently see acronyms used, but we have identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, LGBTQ plus, and I've seen in some of the materials it's plus, and then it adds other acronyms on. I'm just asking that we add something in there that would say something like, who have a gender identity or sexual orientation that puts them at risk, or something like that. I don't know that that's the right language, that we're using terminology that could be used broadly, right? And we're not having to always in acronyms. We're actually saying, it could be due to their gender identity or sexual orientation. And I don't know if there's anything in the acronyms that falls outside those two categories. Does anybody else?
No, that covers
Does
it.
that make sense? What's that? Okay, if that makes
That
sense,
should
and then
cover it.
we're not trying to bits and pieces or trying to figure out what this means or what that means. We just know that it could be due to their gender identity or sexual orientation. It puts them at greater risk. There's probably a way to word that. It doesn't, I just think that keeps it not only aligned with law, what that looks like, but it also, there's not ambiguous pieces in there, or people, or things that people don't understand.
It's
So
on the,
it was under, and I think it's not in the youth, but it's in the other two documents. It's just examples of risk factors for children who are susceptible or at higher risk, may include those who, and then however that needs to be
it's like
worded.
on the third page.
Yeah. And it's in both of this and the adult serving youth. Okay, sorry. I just have a question because it doesn't seem to follow the formatting, and maybe this is a technical change. This is on myths and misconceptions under children who have been abused are not at fault. Materials should, and maybe I'm thinking of this wrong, but it says myths and misconceptions. Materials should diffuse common misconceptions about abuse. The materials must include all the following. And sorry, let me see if I can find the other piece. This is done in another spot and it's done differently. Meaning, okay, so if you go to, which I like the way it's done in the second part, they highlight the myth and then the fact, and then the myth and then the fact. But here it just gives a statement. It's like, is this the myth or the fact? Does that make any sense? So it's just a formatting thing.
Which one did you find it where it's not?
It's in the
that way.
Parents and guardians. Towards the end, there's myths and misconceptions. The material should cover human trafficking myths.
Oh, okay.
But it says myth 1, fact, myth 2, fact. But here it says the same myths and facts, but then it just states something. I don't know if it's myth or fact. I mean,
Yeah.
I do know, but
Okay. Yes, I understand. I think what happened here, we were trying to make sure that we were aligning the documents and it probably just got missed. So yeah, this would be
And no
part of those
problem. It
technical
just, to me,
changes.
that one, well, this is clear. Here, I had to actually read it and go, no, what is it? Is it the myth or the fact? Kind of. I mean, I know.
Yeah, because there's missing facts in the
So we
child
want
sex
myth and
abuse
facts
section
to
and
Just cleaned up,
also
so
the
it's-
human trafficking
yeah.
section. So which section is human trafficking?
Do you get that, Patty? Thank you.
I think. let's see. I know look, our AI people and our math people are over there going, hey, you guys. I think that's all on that one. You want me to check the other one too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just in the motion right now.
Yeah, under examples of risk.
One, we have to bring back the motion because you all voted on it, so we will bring it,
Okay,
and then it'll be voted on, but just so that I'm aware, this is under which document? What is the total?
that's the parent
That
and
was the-
it's parent, and I think it's probably similar in the adult serving youth. Adult serving youth.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, and I would,
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing under the adult, well, not the only thing, under the adult serving youth, is there anything in here about just being sensitive or aware of a student reliving an experience or triggering? Is there anything that, just that sensitivity of someone who's gone through that to make, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Is there anything in there?
we reference that if they need to talk to a student about this or a child about this, that they do it in a trauma-informed way. That they teach the parent or the adult serving youth how to do that in a trauma-informed way.
Okay.
And that would include what you're asking about.
Perhaps. I won't argue that one, but today I have some concerns over trauma informed practices, but I know where you guys have gone before, so I just want to make sure we're making sure we're sensitive and not and allowing people to be aware that they may be reliving an experience, and so just to be really cautious of things like that, so which would fall under that.
This is what I added for.
Yeah, that would, I wouldn't say prior lived experiences, prior either abuse or, right? I mean, that's what we're talking here. Lived experiences could be a variety of things. I think we want to be just more specific.
I would say that in the part where it talks about if a child discloses to them, we were really careful to make sure to say, don't ask them questions.
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
delve into that.
I saw that.
Let,
Needs to
report
be
it to
held
law
with
enforcement.
professionals and parents,
Right,
right? To
correct.
notify parents. Okay. I did see that. I thought that was well done. Okay, I don't think I have any others. Did you have any others? Okay, thanks. Sorry, I should have picked up. We were doing cleaning the whole thing up at once. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that kind of cleans that up so that they all kind of have that same fluidity.
We have Jody Marker online. Would you like to jump in here and give us some additional information?
Jody, if you're talking,
You're muted if Jody is talking.
Jody, if you're you might be muted if you're talking. Just, you guys weren't on.
There she is.
I was not speaking yet. I'm here if needed now.
Jody.
Jody, I just was told that there may be some of these things that were just added here that are also in the health standards. Can you just guide us to where any of these that are in this motion document are also in the health standards? They can still be included here, but it's just a good thing to know.
Sure. Jody Parker, Health Education Specialist, USBE. More of these actually related kind of to the last item, but we do have very general abuse prevention standards, and they're going to sound like discuss how to clearly say no, leave a situation, interaction, identify and talk with a trusted adult when feeling uncomfortable, afraid, or unsafe. Those standards are every year from kindergarten to sixth grade. In sixth grade, and well, fifth and sixth, they changed just slightly. List multiple trusted adults, for example, parent, guardian, relative, teacher, counselor, or clergy to talk with if feeling uncomfortable, afraid, or unsafe about an interaction or other harmful situation. Explain the need to talk with more than one adult if the issue is not resolved. That's how it changes, and I misspoke. That's how it changes beginning in fourth grade. Middle school and high school are dedicated class health education classes, and there are 2 standards there. And I know that this is with regards to elementary only, so I'm not going to be specific on those, but it is also addressed in middle school and high school. And the intention of leaving K through 6 so broad is allowing for laws to change and very specific curriculum to be adopted through you all, through USBE and the process that we have for adopting curriculum. And the standard would still exist and be relevant regardless of how specific the curriculum became or the instruction, and whoever may be doing it, whether it's a counselor, an elementary classroom teacher who is trained, or an outside guest speaker coming into a classroom and doing that training. And then the only additional thing I wanted to add is we also do have standards with technology misuse, and that is discuss how to use and misuse current technology, develop a personal safety plan. That would be fourth grade. Fifth grade, analyze the influence of media and technology on personal and family health, develop a personal safety plan for technology use. And sorry, one last one, describe sixth grade is there's 2, describe various ways media can influence thoughts and feelings that may lead to one taking unnecessary risk, develop strategies for minimizing risk, and explore consequences for using technology inappropriately and discuss school policies. So technology was, again, broad. We like to leave things broad, so it could be any form of technology. If something new comes that we didn't even think would be invented when the standards were written, then the standard would still, it would still be relevant because the specifics can be added in later. I think that were just the clarifications I wanted to make, that it is in our core standards. So as a place to put this, if a school or district decided health education was the standard for it to live under. But again, it could be a school program and not part of any core academic area.
Thank you very much, Jody. We appreciate that input. All right, so we've done the first motion up on the screen, correct? We're now ready for this second motion. Member Earl, did you want to officially make the motion?
Yes, so under parent and guardian, under examples of risk of children, replace LGBTQ with children who have a gender identity or sexual orientation that may put them at greater risk. And then under parent and guardians, misconceptions, formatting just need to align. So you've got mis and facts document so that it has the mis and facts labels. And then under adults serving youth, add being sensitive and aware of a youth who may have had prior abuse. And under examples of risk to children, replace LGBTQ with children who have a gender identity or sexual orientation that may put them at greater risk. And under parents and guardians, oh yeah, so it's the same. And then also making the same change with anything under the mis and misconceptions. So.
All right. Any further adjustments? Member Real, any comments?
I don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to proceed then. Having just heard the motion, what she said, we're now going to just vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Thank you, Tanya. Are we done with that one?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so we're now ready for mathematics standards revision update. We have Molly and Nathan. Welcome. Oh, who else?
It's Mike Spencer.
Mike. Mike, welcome. We're glad that you're here.
Like that was not Nathan. Online.
Great. All right. Well, we're glad that you're here. Take it away.
Yes, I am Molly Basham. I am the early learning mathematics specialist on the teaching and learning STEM team. And I am very excited today, before we get started on our standards revision update, to introduce you to our newest team member, which seems to be a trend lately, but we now have a full and complete P12 math team. So I'm excited to introduce you all to Melissa Garber, who is our new elementary mathematics specialist. She's joining us from Jordan School District. So we are very excited to have her here on the team. And as I said before I was mic'd, Nate is not with us here physically in person today, but he, I believe, is available online on Zoom if we have any questions that need to be directed specifically into the secondary space on the standards revision. So up on the screen, and I did give you a paper copy as well, is our report template. So our writing committee has met numerous times since we sat down in front of you all in early August. We've had a couple of subcommittee meetings specifically focused on our mathematical skills, and we've had a couple of broader group meetings with our lead writers, and then the strand-based teams have been meeting throughout August and September to continue making revisions and tweaks and updates. We've worked on, it's incredible to see it all laid out like this. As we were filling out this template, just really impressed with all the work that our writers and their teams have completed. They have worked through several feedback and revision cycles where they have looked at each other's strands and provided comments and suggestions and made revisions. We've worked on really refining the mathematical skills that we're asking students to engage in throughout the P12 education system and updated those as we've worked through the process of embedding them into our core math standards. The writing teams have worked to come up with really grade level specific descriptions of what those skills look like based on the feedback that we have received from the board to try to make sure that we are hitting on those skills and competencies at every grade level, and balancing how those skills are incorporated across grades so that students are getting to engage with mathematical skills that are critical for every grade throughout the P12 system. We have worked on one of the most recent tasks that our writing teams have been working on is trying to come up with a list of really specific competencies for each grade level that are written in a layperson friendly language so that anyone can look at those standards to really meet what is written in code about having our standards include the knowledge, skills, and competencies that students need at each grade level. So that is something that our writers are currently working on right now. And we've put a lot of energy into looking at the vertical and horizontal alignment to make sure that the standards flow from grade to grade across the spectrum of P12, especially in those transition spaces, moving in the 5th and 6th grade space as students move into middle school and in that bridge between middle school and high school. So from status updates, I always love filling this out because I feel like the topics discussed in the status updates are almost the same thing. So some of this may be me repeating myself just a little bit. But the writing teams continue to adjust their drafts based on the feedback that they have been providing internally. We met back in September in person. Most of the work the teams have done has been virtual up to this point, but we did get the lead writers together for a full day in-person deep dive in September, which was really powerful. We're going to be doing another one of those later towards the end of this month. During that time in those virtual and in-person meetings, as I mentioned, we've refined the mathematical skills and drafted descriptions for each grade band. And that the teams began drafting specific grade level competencies so that we are making sure we're capturing the competencies, knowledge, and skills for each grade level for the standards. So next steps, our lead writers are working on making those final adjustments. We are hoping in the very near future to have a draft that is ready to be shared with the board as we move into, we're in step 6, which is while the writers are working all their magic right now, but being able to move into step 7 in that 13-step process, which would be to share that initial draft with all of you and the full board so that you have 30 days to review and make comments on it. So I just went a mile a minute because I know we're already past time, but what questions do you have for us today?
Hey, how long do we have? Okay. Maybe I'll have to take it offline, but, and I was just looking at back at what we passed, and I have a question. I know this is going to open up a can of worms and people are going to be like, but we are an integrated state. We do the integrated secondary math, even though we're only one of 4 states that do it. And so, in our motion, there was an argument of flexibility, our choice in whether doing the traditional, which I know has got this term of sandwiched, right? Or however you want to term it. I'm just wondering, is there flexibility? Or are we not building flexibility? So that's my question. And I understand does it make sense what I'm asking? In the secondary math courses, right? We're only 4 of how many states that do the integrated, am I saying that right?
You are.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, maybe people are looking at me like a little strange, but the integrated math, I get there's a very passionate feeling for many people to do it that way. And anyways, I'm just, and I guess the question to me comes when a student goes to college, can they tell the difference between who did integrated math and who did a more of a traditional math approach? Just because we have so many states that do it the more traditional approach, but I still think many of them do elements of integration. It's not completely separate. Can you just someone speak to that, where we're at on that?
Nate is online, so I think he wants to speak to that one.
Okay.
Yep. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
this is
we can hear
Nathan
you.
Ock, the STEM coordinator. Oh, good. Nathan Ock, STEM coordinator for the STEM Plus team. So Vice Chair, we indeed had a long discussion about the recommendation that was made during the conversation back at the beginning of the year connected to integrated versus non-integrated standards. We went and got feedback from all of the math specialists that attend our statewide coordinator meeting and talked to the writing committees about the pros and cons of going both ways. And so as currently written, the standards draft that will come out before you is fully integrated. And the reason that the writing committee landed on that is because over 90% of the math specialists, I don't remember the exact percentage off the top of my head, but they said that they wanted to stick with integration, that they had better experiences for like you said, for finding the kind of natural connections between the content and the opportunity costs of having 2 systems at the same time. There was immense concern about students transferring from one system to another, because in an AGA setup, and AGA stands for Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. So that's the non-integrated math pathway that some other states use. They get an entirely different set of content during each of the 3 years. And so for students to be able to move from one system to another would mean either not getting a number of the core standards that were included or getting repeats of the same standards. And so because of that, like at least as far as the draft is concerned at the moment, the writing committee decided on the integrated model.
Okay.
I'm happy to
I'm
answer
just
any
telling
other
you, this is going to
specifics.
be a arm
Yep.
wrestle eventually. So and maybe from the public too. So I just think it's something we should be sensitive and aware of, that there may be a need for an option or choice. And I understand what you're saying. They're just efficiency, right? And those kind of things. But I do think I just think it's something we need to be aware of. So that's all I'm going to say. But I just think need to know that there may be interests And it was part of our 18, allow LEA to choose an non-integrated sequence in high school math programs. So I'm just going to leave it at that. We don't have to even talk about it anymore. If you want to talk to me personally, we can do that. But I just want to leave that out there, that when this comes before the board, there may be additional, not concern, but movement in that area. So it may be good to know that ahead of time. That's it.
Yeah, I'll reach out by email. Happy to answer any other specifics or offer any other transparency into our process that I can.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
We appreciate that update. Matt, let's take a look at AI.
Matt Winters, AI specialist here at Utah State Board of Education. Very excited to be here with you this morning. First off, just some board updates about AI in Utah. First off, in our board backing, we have the USB AI summits. These all were concluded across the course of September. We had 6 of them across the state of Utah. We had over 500, maybe even 600 educators. We're still looking at the numbers and determining, because there were some that signed up live when they came into the space, that came out to all 6 of the events. Throughout the course of these summits, we learned a few key pieces of information. First off, the LEAs found that the content and time provided them to speak with vendors that are approved here in the state of Utah through Utah Education Network and statewide contracts. They found that very, very helpful in the development process. There's a significant need for future summits, as well as to address AI in content areas, grade levels, and special topics in education. There's a particular need and discussion around meaningful inclusion in AI and how that would work. And so we're looking at those as future summit topics. We were also very excited to have the majority of our statewide higher education institutions come out to the events across, as well as members from USHE. And what was great about that was meeting those members of that community and learning about that they're asking the same questions we are in K-12 as they are in higher ed about training. How do we integrate this? What are some of the big focal points there? And so doing some outreach with our higher ed partners is going to be part of my future here. We're hosting a virtual version of the summit because we had a big request from a lot of our LEAs to have more training, particularly that same training for other teachers, but also recording that. So we're currently working on getting that date. Unfortunately, because of my schedule, we are going to be pushing it from late October to early November, just about a week later. But we're going to be accommodating those that weren't able to come out to the in-person summits. Second, we have next Friday in this room, USB is hosting an internal AI summit for our employees. We have over, I think it's 150 signed up. About 150 employees signed up to come attend either virtually or in this space. This space doesn't hold 150, so we're hoping to spread out everyone a little bit virtually there. We're going to provide to employees an overview of the public AI summits, what we learned, and some of the big kind of talking points from that. We're also going to have time to explore USB tools that are approved here, including Copilot, Gemini, Adobe tools, as well as some community tools that have also been approved for internal use, which are School AI and SkillStrex Chat for Schools. And we're going to have a very popular presentation from our AI summits that were public facing from our student data privacy team to talk about the importance of foregrounding student data privacy when we talk about artificial intelligence and what that means. So that will be hosted again next Thursday in this space, or sorry, next Friday in this space from 9 to 3:30. The last thing is just some policy updates. We're getting some requests from different LEAs about how to handle existing code and law in terms of artificial intelligence. And we're providing some of the recommendations with our policy team. And we're going to start looking through some of the other laws that may be affected by artificial intelligence use. over the next couple of months to prepare kind of future conversations around that. We're working in conjunction with the Office of AI Policy, which is a new office here in the state of Utah that was created in the last legislative session and went into work in May. And they're helping us to review policy and what kind of different policies may be happening here in the state of Utah around artificial intelligence, and possibly building regulatory mitigation documents if possible, if necessary. That's all I have today. Any questions? Absolutely, we would love to have you there. Friday 9 to 3:30, and it will be fully recorded as well.
Yeah, and I could send you the Zoom link though, and then you could come in.
Like we did most of the other conference that we're referencing. They were great.
Thank you.
You want the Zoom link, or are you gonna come up Zoom?
Actually, Andrea, I just sent you the website for the next session, and it has all the Zoom links on it. We're going to be having in the morning, it'll be one Zoom link. In the afternoon, we have representatives from Microsoft School AI Skills Track coming out, and so they're going to be in multiple Zoom spaces or team spaces. The main room will be me presenting 1 hour on Google Gemini and how to use it here at USB, the other hour on Adobe AI tools. So we'll make sure Andrea gets that to you guys very, very soon. Yep.
Thank you. We sure appreciate all the work you're doing and appreciate Dr. Norman and the leadership that's been taken to put Utah on the forefront of what's happening in AI.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful every day for the great leadership here at USB, both from our board and from our superintendency on artificial intelligence. And we are truly, talking to national figures, we are truly a lead on this particular conversation. And I am hoping to keep us at the forefront. Yep.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there additional items that we should consider before we break?
I'm not a board member, but I move that we get the recipe from your wife.
All right, we'll get that recipe. Great. There are a few more over there. Grab one for lunch. It may be all you have time for. Thank you very much. We'll say this meeting is adjourned.